Her lawyer's exact words, in the email she forgot to delete, were, "He won't even see this coming," and I read them standing in the doorway of the $650,000 house I had already made impossible for her to touch. My name is Marcus Doyle. I'm 42. I build cabinets for a living, custom work, mostly kitchens, out of a shop on the east side of Millbrook, Ohio. 16 years married. I did not raise my voice when I read that line. I did not ask why. I closed the laptop, quiet, like I was closing a cash drawer at the end of a slow night. I should tell you something about how I work first, because it matters later. 8 months ago, a supplier billed me twice for the same walnut order, once in March and once in November, different invoice numbers, same load, same delivery date buried 3 lines down. Nobody else would have caught it. I caught it because I check every invoice against every delivery slip. Every time, no exceptions. My guys used to tease me about it. I don't get loud, I get accurate. That Tuesday morning, before Renata was even awake, I went out to the garage. There's a fireproof box back there, gray, steel, bolted to a shelf my father built with his own hands before he died. I didn't open it that morning. I just checked the lock, the way you check a door is shut before a storm. My dad put that box there 12 years ago, right around closing on this house, and he told me one thing about it, standing right where I was standing. "I hope you never need this," he said, "but if you do, you already have it." I didn't know yet what this was. I just knew the box was still locked, still mine, still exactly where it had always been. That was enough for one morning. Then I drove to First Ridge Bank on Route 42 and sat in the parking lot until they opened the doors at 9. I want to back up 3 days, because that's really where this starts. The email screenshot came from my cousin Denny, who does IT work for the firm Renata had hired. He wasn't trying to blow anything up. He just forwarded it to me by habit, an old joke between us, thinking it was funny paperwork from some other case. It wasn't funny. It was Renata's divorce attorney writing to Renata about me, about the house on Corrigan Lane, about filing to force a sale before I had any idea a filing existed. I read it twice at the kitchen table, coffee going cold, and then I read the line again out loud, just to myself, just to hear how it sounded in my own kitchen. "He won't even see this coming." I decided right then she was wrong about that. I didn't confront her. I didn't leave a note. I got in my truck at 6 a.m. the next day and drove to the bank before the sun was all the way up over Corrigan Lane, and I asked for Priya Anand, because she'd handled our mortgage refinance inquiry 2 years back, and she was sharp, the kind of sharp that reads the fine print you skip. "I need to separate my accounts," I told her, "all of them. Today, if you can." She didn't ask why. Bank people rarely do, not at first. She just started pulling up account numbers. Over the next 3 days, I went through our finances the same way I go through a job cost sheet, line by line, no skipping. I moved my half of the shop's operating account into an account with my name only. I closed the joint credit card we'd had since year 4 of the marriage and opened a new one under my social security number alone. I pulled 6 months of statements and read every single line, because that's what you do when a lawyer says the words, "He won't even see this coming" about you. That's when I noticed the $2,400. Same amount, first of every month, going back at least 8 months, maybe longer, labeled only consulting fee. TM. I didn't know a TM. I didn't remember approving a consulting fee. I set it aside in my head the way I set aside a receipt that doesn't match a delivery. Not urgent, just wrong. I'd come back to it. I also moved $86,000 out of a joint high-yield savings account we'd built together over a decade into an account only I could touch, and I left her exactly half to the dollar because I don't get loud, I get accurate, and accurate meant I wasn't going to steal from her even while she was trying to take the roof over both our heads. I want to say I felt something big doing all that. Mostly I just felt like I was closing out invoices. Line, total, next line. There was one more thing from those 3 days. Twice, late at night, I heard her on the back porch with her phone pressed close to her face, voice low, the kind of low people use when they don't want the walls to hear. Both times, when I glanced at her call log the next morning out of habit more than suspicion, there was a name saved only as T. 14 minutes the first call, 22 the second. I didn't ask her about it. I just remembered it, the way I remember a supplier's invoice number without trying. By Friday, my name was off nearly everything we'd built together except the house itself, and the house I couldn't touch alone, not without her signature too. That part I already knew going in. That part didn't worry me yet because of the box in the garage, and because some part of me still trusted a piece of paper my father had insisted on years before any of this started. Friday afternoon, I was 30 feet up a ladder in the Hendersons' kitchen on the far side of Millbrook, hanging an upper cabinet, when a man in a gray polo walked in past the plastic sheeting and asked if I was Marcus Doyle. "That's me," I said, coming down a rung at a time. Mrs. Henderson was standing right there with a mug of coffee watching, the way clients do when something feels off in their own kitchen. The man held out an envelope. "You've been served," he said, and then he was gone, back out through the plastic sheeting, back into his car, before I'd even opened it. I set my drill down on the counter, careful, like it was something that could still be useful later. Mrs. Henderson didn't say anything. I didn't either, not at first. I just opened the envelope right there in her half-finished kitchen, sawdust on the floor, cabinet doors still leaning against the wall waiting for hinges. It was a divorce petition. My wife's name at the top, my name under it, and 3 paragraphs in, a request that the marital residence at Corrigan Lane, Millbrook, be sold and the proceeds divided, on the grounds that neither party could afford to buy the other out. $650,000. That's what the house was worth on paper. That's what she wanted split, fast, before anyone slowed down long enough to ask a single question about why. Mrs. Henderson finally spoke. "Everything all right, Marcus?" "It will be," I said, and I meant it the way I mean it when I tell a client a cabinet will be square before I've cut the first joint. Not a guess. A plan already moving. I picked the drill back up. I finished hanging that cabinet before I left her house that day. Dead level. Because a man can be served papers and still make sure a door closes the way it's supposed to. Then I drove home to Corrigan Lane, and for the first time in 3 days, I went straight to the garage, and I stood in front of that gray steel box a long moment before I finally turned the key. The lock on that box was a simple key lock, nothing fancy, the kind you could find at any hardware store on Route 42. My father never trusted anything he couldn't understand with his own hands. He used to say a lock with a computer in it was just a lock that could lie to you. I turned the key. The lid came up stiff, like it always did, hinges dry after years of sitting still. Inside, there wasn't much. A stack of old photographs rubber-banded together, my parents' wedding certificate, a manila folder, thick with Corrigan Lane, closing written across the tab in my father's block handwriting, and underneath that, a single envelope, yellowed at the edges, my name on the front in the same handwriting, nothing else. I sat down on the concrete floor of that garage with my back against the workbench, and I opened my father's letter first. It wasn't long. Walter Doyle never wasted words on paper any more than he wasted them out loud. Marcus, if you're reading this, something's gone wrong, or you're just being careful, which is fine too. 12 years ago, I put $140,000 toward this house so you and Renata could start clean. I didn't give it to you free and clear. I had it written into the deed, recorded proper at the Union County Recorder's Office, that nobody touches that gift, refinances against it, or borrows on this house without written consent from the family trust. That means me, and now that I'm gone, it means you. I hope you never need this, but if you do, you already have it. I read it twice, then I read it a third time, slower, the way I read an invoice when the numbers don't sit right. I didn't remember signing anything about a trust. I remembered the closing table, 12 years back, a stack of papers so tall Renata joked her hand would cramp before we finished. I remembered my father standing off to one side, not saying much, just watching, the way he watched everything important in his life. I didn't remember a writer, but my father wasn't a man who told stories about paperwork that didn't exist. I opened the manila folder next. Photocopies, staple still rusted at the corner, a document titled Rider to Deed of Trust, Gift Provision, dated the same day as our closing, recorded, stamped, with a seal from the Union County Recorder's Office pressed right into the corner of the page. I didn't read every line that night. I didn't need to yet. I needed to know it existed, and it did, and it was real, and it was recorded, which meant it wasn't just a box in my garage, it was public record. It was already true whether anyone believed me or not. I closed the box. I didn't lock it right away. I just sat there a minute longer, in the quiet, with sawdust still on my boots from the Hendersons' kitchen, and I thought about my father saying, "I hope you never need this," like he already knew, somehow, that a day like this one was coming. Monday morning, I called Denise Ferraro. I'd heard her name from a guy at the lumberyard whose brother went through a bad split 2 years back. Denise worked out of a converted house on Main Street in Millbrook, right across from the diner, blinds always half open. She was maybe 50, gray, streaking through dark hair, reading glasses pushed up on her head more often than on her face. "Mr. Doyle," she said, once I'd laid the folder on her desk, "walk me through this slow. Every piece." So I did. The email, the $2,400 charges, the process server on a client's job site, the writer in the box. She read the writer twice, same as I had. Then she looked up at me over the glasses she'd finally put on. "You understand what this means if it holds up?" she said. "If this writer's valid and it was never satisfied, your wife's attorney just filed a motion to force sell a house that may not be entirely hers to force sell, not without your family trust's consent." "I figured that was the idea behind it," I said. "Your father was careful. My father built machine parts for 40 years. Careful's the only setting he had." She almost smiled at that. Then she got back to business, because Denise wasn't a woman who lingered on a good line for long. "I want the full closing file from the recorder's office." "Certified copy, not this," she said, tapping the photocopy. "I want to know if this writer was ever amended, released, anything. And I want to know who's pushing that hearing date, because a forced sale motion this fast usually means somebody needs cash quicker than they're letting on." "There's something else," I said. "Money moving out of our old joint account. $2,400 a month, same day every month, going out to something called TM Consulting, 8 months at least. I haven't traced it past the account name." Denise wrote that down without looking up. "You're the one who does your own books? Every invoice, every delivery slip. I don't miss a line." "Then trace it," she said. "You'll do it faster than I will and cheaper." I want to tell you I went home and stared at that name for hours, TM Consulting, turning it over like a puzzle. I didn't. I went home, opened my laptop at the kitchen table where this whole thing started, and pulled up the state business filings the same way I look up a supplier before I sign a contract with them. It took 11 minutes. TM Consulting LLC. Registered agent, Todd Mercer. Same Todd Mercer listed as co-owner, alongside Renata, of a company called Heartland Comfort Systems, an HVAC outfit 2 towns over in Marysville. I sat back in my chair. T. The name saved in her phone. 14 minutes on the porch. 22 minutes the second time. Not some stranger. Her business partner. And apparently, for 8 months, also a line item on our joint account, $2,400 a month. Money moving from our house straight into his company under a label vague enough that nobody would ever ask about it twice. I didn't call Renata. I didn't confront her at the counter with a printout in my hand like a man in a courtroom drama. That's not how I work. I called Denise back the next morning and told her what I'd found. Heartland Comfort Systems, she repeated. I've heard that name. Let me check something. 2 days later, she called me into her office again, and this time she had a printout of her own waiting on the desk. Public court filings, Union County, she said. Heartland Comfort Systems has a judgment against it from a supplier, unpaid invoices, close to $60,000. And there's a UCC filing, a lender's claim, showing your wife's name as a personal guarantor on a business loan. $180,000, Mr. Doyle. Signed 11 months ago. The number sat in the room a second before I answered. She never told me about a loan like that. I'd guess that's the point, Denise said. If that guarantee comes due and the company folds, creditors can come after joint marital assets, but only while you're still married. Once the divorce is final and the house is sold and split, whatever she walks away with is hers, clean, out of reach before anyone connects a guarantee to a failing HVAC company in Marysville. So the divorce isn't really about us. The divorce is about timing, Denise said. She needs this house liquidated before that guarantee comes due. My guess, we're looking at 3 weeks, maybe less. I thought about the $2,400 a month. Not a consulting fee at all. Money to keep Todd Mercer's company breathing just long enough, or maybe to keep him quiet, or maybe both. I didn't know yet, not exactly. I only knew accurate mattered more than ever now. There's one more thing, Denise said, sliding a single sheet across the desk. I pulled a copy of the refinance application filed with First Ridge Bank 3 weeks ago. Your signature's on it, authorizing your wife to draw against the house equity. I looked at it a long moment. I never signed that. I didn't think you had, Denise said. The bank's fraud department is going to want a word with you. I already reached out. Ask for a woman named Priya Anand. She handles their fraud review. I remembered Priya from the first morning, sitting across her desk while I moved my accounts, calm and quick and thorough, in a way I recognized because it's how I run my own shop. I hadn't told her why I was doing any of it. Now it looked like she was about to find out on her own. I drove to First Ridge Bank that same afternoon, Route 42 still busy with the after-school traffic pulling out of the middle school lot. Priya had my file already up on her screen when I sat down, a second monitor beside it showing a scanned application with 2 signature lines at the bottom. Mr. Doyle, she said, I need you to look at something. She turned the monitor toward me. My name, typed, and beneath it, a signature that looked close enough to pass a glance, but wrong in the tail of the S, wrong in the slant of the D, wrong the way a copy is always wrong once you know to look. That's not mine, I said. Priya nodded slowly, like she'd already guessed that answer before I gave it. That's what I thought when I pulled your account signature card to compare. I need you to know, this changes what happens next. Once a bank confirms a forged signature on a loan document, that's not just a marital dispute anymore, Mr. Doyle. That's a fraud file. She scrolled the application down another few lines and stopped. There's something else here you should see, she said. Second applicant listed as proposed co-borrower on the refinance, pending approval. She turned the screen fully toward me. Todd Mercer. I sat there and looked at his name printed clean on a line meant for family, for someone with a stake in that house, in that address on Corrigan Lane, where I'd hung a swing for a niece who never came to visit as much as we'd hoped, where my father used to sit on the porch some Sundays with a coffee he never finished. Priya closed the folder without waiting for me to say anything else. I have to escalate this internally today, she said. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Doyle. Once fraud review confirms what I'm seeing, this stops being quiet. People are going to have to answer for it. Priya didn't wait for me to leave before she picked up her phone and called someone upstairs. I heard her say fraud review, today before I was even out the door. I drove back to Millbrook with the radio off. That's how I think best. No noise, just the road, and numbers lining up in my head like dovetail joints. Forged signature. Todd Mercer's name on a co-borrower line. $180,000 she never told me about. $2,400 a month, quiet, for 8 months. I didn't feel angry driving home. I felt like a man reading a set of plans and finding out half the measurements were wrong. You don't get mad at a blueprint, you just stop trusting it. At the shop, I sanded an edge on a walnut cabinet door for almost an hour before I noticed my hands were steady the whole time. Denise called around 4. Priya's office confirmed it, she said. Forgery. They're opening an internal fraud file today. That triggers a mandatory hold on the pending refinance. So the loan doesn't go through, not while it's under review, which buys us time before the hearing. She paused. I'm filing for an emergency title hold at the Union County Recorder's office tomorrow morning. If I get it before your wife's attorney gets his hearing date locked, nobody sells that house out from under you while this sorts itself out. When's the hearing? Delaware County Courthouse. Judge Ruth Alvarez has the docket. 3 weeks from Thursday. 3 weeks. Same 3 weeks Denise had already guessed Todd Mercer's company had left before that guarantee came due. Everything Renata was doing had the same clock ticking under it. I didn't tell Denise about the hollow feeling that came with hearing my wife's name next to the word forgery. I just said, file it, and went back to the walnut door. 2 days after that call, though I wasn't counting, not really, I just noticed the calendar page had turned. Renata came home a different woman than she'd left that morning. She usually came home from her shop in Millbrook loud in a good way, keys jangling, already talking before the door closed. That evening, she came in quiet. Too quiet. She set her purse on the counter like it might break something. My card got declined today, she said. At the pharmacy, in front of people. I kept my voice even. Which card? The one I've used for years. Marcus, the woman behind the register, looked at me like I was some kind of criminal. She wasn't looking at me when she said it. She was looking past me, at the window, like she already knew the answer and didn't want to hear it out loud. I closed some accounts, I said. You still have half of everything we had. Denise can walk you through exactly which ones. You had no right. I had every right, I said. You filed to force sell our house. I read the email where your lawyer said I wouldn't see it coming. That stopped her, just for a second. Then she recovered, the way she always did at her events when a vendor showed up late and she had 30 seconds to make it look planned. That's not what this is about, she said. Then what's it about? She didn't answer. She picked her purse back up and went upstairs, and I heard the bedroom door close soft instead of slammed, which told me more than a slam would have. What she didn't tell me that night, what I only heard about later from Denise, who heard it from Priya, was that the declined card wasn't the whole visit. Priya had pulled her into a back office at the First Ridge Bank branch on Route 42, the same branch where I'd sat with my own file 3 days before. Mrs. Doyle, Priya told her, according to the account Denise gave me almost word for word, I need to show you something on this refinance application. She'd turned the monitor around. Same signature. Same wrong slant on the D. This doesn't match Mr. Doyle's signature card, Priya said. We're required to flag that as potential fraud. I have to ask you directly. Did you submit this application? Renata said she didn't know what Priya was talking about. Said maybe it went through a broker. Said maybe there'd been some kind of clerical mix-up. Priya didn't raise her voice either, from what I understand. She just said, there's also a proposed co-borrower listed, Todd Mercer. Can you tell me his relationship to the property? And that, Denise said, was the moment Renata stopped talking altogether and asked for a lawyer. I got the call from that lawyer myself, later that same night, around 9. I was in the shop, alone, running a hand sander over a drawer front that didn't need it anymore. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Doyle. My name is Andrew Kessler. I represent your wife in the dissolution matter. I know who you are, I said. I didn't, not really, but Denise had mentioned his name once, and it fit. I'll get right to it, he said, and his voice had a shake in it I wasn't used to hearing from lawyers. We have a serious problem. I set the sander down. Go on. The refinance application filed with First Ridge Bank. I was not aware of the specifics until this afternoon. There's a signature issue. The bank's fraud unit is treating it as forgery. I need to know, directly, whether you authorized that application in any form. I didn't sign it, I said. I didn't see it until your bank's fraud officer showed it to me. Silence on the line a moment. Then, quieter, like he was choosing every word. Mr. Doyle, I want you to understand something. I did not draft that application. I did not submit it. If what the bank is telling me is accurate, my client may be facing exposure well beyond the divorce proceeding itself. That's between you and your client. It is, he said. But it changes the posture of everything we've filed. The motion to force the sale assumes clean title and clean financing. If there's a forgery question sitting on top of a pending refinance, the court isn't going to touch a sale motion until that's resolved. I'd expect your counsel already knows that. She does. Another pause. There's one more thing. I understand there may be a lien or a rider on that property predating this marriage. Is that something you're aware of? I thought about the gray steel box in my garage. My father's handwriting on the envelope. I hope you never need this. But if you do, you already have it. You'll hear about it at the hearing, I said. Same as everyone else. Mr. Doyle, good night, Mr. Kessler. I hung up and sat there a minute in the quiet of the shop, sawdust smell still hanging in the air, the drawer front sanded smoother than it needed to be. Somewhere across town, Renata was probably on the phone with Todd Mercer, telling him the bank had found the signature, telling him it was all coming apart faster than either of them had planned. I didn't call anyone. I locked up the shop, same as any other night, and drove home past the diner on Main Street where Denise's office sat dark behind half-open blinds, past the turn for Corrigan Lane, past the mailbox my father had helped me set in concrete 12 years back. I don't get loud, I thought, pulling into the driveway. I get accurate. There was still the hearing to get through. There was still a rider in a box that nobody but me and Denise had read all the way to the end. And there was still a woman upstairs who had no idea yet just how much of what she'd built her whole plan on was about to be pulled out from under her, one recorded document at a time. The callback came in around 11 that night. Kessler's number again, lighting up my phone on the workbench. I let it ring. Then I let it go to voicemail, same as I'd decided walking in the door. I didn't listen to it right away either. I had somewhere else to be first. I went out to the garage, past the truck, past the shelf of half-used cans of stain, to the corner where I kept the fireproof box. Gray steel. A dial combination my father set the week before he died, then wrote down for me anyway, because he said, combinations are for when you're thinking straight. Write it down for when you're not. I hadn't opened it in years, not since the estate closed. I turned the dial. 3 clicks. It popped. Inside, an envelope, yellowed at the corner, my name in his handwriting. Under that, a thin stack of papers stapled together, and under that, a folded letter, single page. I read the letter first. Marcus, if you're reading this, something's gone sideways with the house. I told the lawyer to write it plain, no legal fog so you'd understand it fast. I gave you and Renata $140,000 toward that down payment. Not a loan, a gift. But I made your lawyer put a string on it. Nobody touches that money's stake in the house. Not a refinance, not a second mortgage, not a sale, without the family trust signing off in writing. I hope you never need this. But if you do, you already have it. Love, Dad. I sat on an overturned bucket in my own garage and read it twice. Then I looked at the stapled pages underneath. The rider. Recorded at the Union County Recorder's Office, same month as the closing, filed right alongside the deed. Legal language, but I could follow it fine. $140,000, documented as a trust gift. Any encumbrance on the property required written consent from the Doyle Family Trust. Signed by my father's estate attorney. Signed by my father 12 years back, steady handwriting, no shake in it yet. I remembered signing something that day at the closing table. I remembered my father standing behind my chair the whole time, arms crossed, not saying much. I hadn't thought about that rider once in 12 years. Now I understood exactly why he'd stood there like a man watching a weld cool. Renata didn't know this box existed. She'd never once asked about it. Why would she? It was just an old case in the garage to her, something from my side of the family, dusty and none of her business. I put the letter back inside, careful, the way you handle something you don't want creased twice in one lifetime. Then I called Denise, even though it was late. I found it, I said. The rider. My father's letter's here too. Read me the recording number, she said. No hello, straight to work. I read it off the top corner. I'll pull the certified copy first thing, she said. Marcus, if this holds up the way it reads, that hearing's not about splitting a house anymore. It's about whether she can touch it at all. She can't, I said. Not without the trust. Then let's make sure the record agrees with you. A pause. Get some sleep. I mean it. Long few weeks coming. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't listen to Kessler's voicemail either, not that night. 2 days later, Renata asked me to dinner. Not out anywhere, just at the house, like she used to do on a Sunday when she wanted to talk business without it feeling like business. She made the chicken thing she always made, the one with the lemon and the capers, and she poured 2 glasses of wine like nothing in our life was on fire. I don't know why we're fighting like this, she said halfway through. 16 years, Marcus. 16 years, I said. I just want to understand what happened with the accounts. All of it, so fast. It scared me. I kept my voice even. You filed to force sell the house. I found out the way anyone finds out something they weren't supposed to see. She set her fork down. That's not the whole story. Then tell me the whole story. She looked at her wine glass a long moment. It's complicated. Business stuff. You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under. Try me, I said. I run a shop. I understand pressure. She didn't answer that. She asked instead, casual, too casual, like she'd rehearsed the question in the car. Did you ever get a call from a bank? About the refinance paperwork? I talked to a woman named Priya, I said, at First Ridge. Something moved behind her eyes. Quick, gone fast, but I caught it. What did she say? Renata asked. She said there's a signature that doesn't match mine. Renata's hand found her glass again, and she drank more of it than a sip. Banks make mistakes all the time. Sure, I said. They do. She didn't ask anything else after that. She cleared the plates early, said she was tired, went up before 9. I sat at the table a while longer, looking at the 2 wine glasses, one nearly full, one empty, and thought about how a person can sit across from you and still be somewhere else entirely, already dialing someone in her head. I finally listened to Kessler's voicemail that night, alone in the shop. Mr. Doyle, Andrew Kessler again. I need to speak with you and your counsel as soon as possible. There's a development with the bank's fraud unit I think you should hear directly before this goes any further. Please call me back. I didn't call him back. I called Denise in the morning instead. He wants to talk, I said. Sounds rattled. Let him stay rattled, Denise said. I filed the emergency title hold yesterday afternoon. Recorder's office confirmed receipt this morning. Nobody moves that property until a judge says otherwise. She flipped something on her end, paper against paper. There's more. I got the certified rider copy back. It's clean, Marcus. Never amended, never released. Your father's attorney did this right the first time. So it holds. It holds, she said. But there's a wrinkle you should know about. I checked the docket this morning. Kessler filed a motion to move the hearing up. Wants it heard this Thursday instead of 3 weeks out. I sat with that a second. Why would he rush it? Because he just found out what we found out, Denise said. About the guarantee. About Mercer. He's not stupid, Marcus. He knows if this drags on, more comes out, and it stops being a divorce and starts being something with his own client's name on a fraud file. He wants this closed fast, before it gets worse for her. Will the judge grant it? Judge Alvarez doesn't like games, Denise said. She might grant an earlier date just to get answers on the record faster. That cuts both ways. Faster hearing means faster ruling. And we're ready. I thought about the box in the garage, the letter, the writer folded neat as the day it was signed. I thought about Renata upstairs, still not saying the whole story, still dialing someone else in her head at 9 at night. Let them move it up, I said. We're not the ones who need more time. Denise almost laughed. That's exactly the kind of answer your father would have given. I didn't say anything to that. I just looked out the shop window at Corrigan Lane through the trees and thought about how strange it was that the one thing keeping our house standing was a decision a machinist made 12 years ago, quiet, careful, and never once mentioned again until the day it mattered most. Thursday was coming at me fast now. 5 days, not 3 weeks. That gave me less time to breathe, but it gave Renata even less time to figure out how deep the hole went. I spent the next morning at the kitchen table with 6 months of joint account statements spread out like invoice sheets. Old habit. When something doesn't add up on a job, you don't guess. You go line by line. I found it on page 4. A charge, same amount every month, same day, the 22nd, $2,400. Labeled consulting fee, RD Events, LLC. Renata's company was called Renata Doyle Events, not RD Events, LLC. Close enough to miss if you weren't looking. I was looking. I called Denise before 8. I need you to run a name for me, I said. RD Events, LLC. It's not her company. Give me an hour, she said. She called back in 40 minutes, which for Denise meant she'd dropped everything else. RD Events, LLC is registered out of Delaware County, she said. Filed 11 months ago. Sole member listed is Todd Mercer. I sat back in my chair. So every month for 11 months, money's been leaving our joint account and going straight to Mercer. $2,400 a month, Denise said. Call it $26,400 total, dressed up as a business expense on a company you never approved and never used. That's marital money, I said, feeding his company while his company's about to default on a guarantee she co-signed. That's exactly what it looks like, Denise said. And Marcus, that's not just a divorce issue anymore. That's the kind of thing a fraud examiner gets excited about. I didn't say anything for a second. I just looked at the statement, at that same amount, same day, month after month, like a slow leak nobody had noticed because nobody was checking the pipes. She used our account to keep him afloat, I said. Looks that way, Denise said. I'll add it to the packet. Every dollar, every date. If Kessler wants to argue clean hands at that hearing, this doesn't help him. That night, Renata came home late from the shop in Millbrook, later than usual, and she went straight to the back porch with her phone instead of coming inside. I stood at the kitchen sink with the water running low, just enough noise to cover me, and I could hear pieces of it through the screen door. Todd, they know already, she said. Quiet, but not quiet enough. No, I can't. Not after Thursday got moved up. A pause, then, sharper. You told me we had 3 weeks. You told me the bank wouldn't call it early. Another pause, longer this time. I don't care what your loan officer said. If they accelerate that guarantee before the hearing, my name is on it too. She hung up after that. I turned the water off and stood there a minute, drying a glass that was already dry, and thought about how a name on one form could reach into a house on Corrigan Lane and try to take it apart from the inside. She came in a few minutes later, face composed again, the way she got before a big event when a tent pole snapped an hour before guests arrived. "Long day," she said, and went upstairs without asking about mine. I called Denise from the shop the next morning. "I think Mercer's bank is calling the guarantee early," I said. "I heard her on the phone last night. She said something about them accelerating it before the hearing." "That tracks with something I heard this morning," Denise said. "Priya Anand called my office. Formal this time, not just a courtesy heads up." "What did she say?" "First, Ridge is done reviewing the refinance application. Fraud units confirmed the signature doesn't match your file. They're voiding the application and flagging the account. They're also freezing the home equity line, $85,000 available on it, until the matter's resolved." $85,000, I repeated. "She's also referring the file to the county fraud unit," Denise said. "That's not a bank decision anymore. That's a law enforcement one." I looked out the shop window at the tree line along Corrigan Lane, bare branches this time of year, nothing hiding behind them. "What does that mean for Thursday?" "It means Kessler's going to walk into that hearing representing a client under an active fraud referral," Denise said. "And I don't think he knows that yet. I only got the call an hour ago. He knew by that afternoon. He called me again, same shaking voice as before, maybe worse. "Mr. Doyle," he said, "I need to be straightforward with you. I've just been informed the bank is referring the signature matter to county fraud investigators." "I was not made aware this would escalate to that level. Sounds like it escalated on its own," I said. "There's something else," he said. "I've reviewed the joint account records your attorney's office subpoenaed, the recurring transfers to RD Events, LLC. I wasn't aware of that arrangement either." "Neither was I said, "until I read the statements myself." Silence on his end. Then, "Mr. Doyle, I have an obligation to my client. But I also have an obligation to this court. I'm filing a motion this afternoon to withdraw as counsel unless she agrees to full disclosure before Thursday." "That's your call to make," I said. "It is," he said. "I wanted you to hear it from me before you heard it from the docket." I thanked him, which surprised us both, and hung up. Renata found out about the withdrawal motion before dinner. I know because she came downstairs with her phone in her hand, color gone from her face, and stood in the kitchen doorway like she'd forgotten why she'd walked in. "Andrew's trying to drop me," she said. "Why would he do that? He says he can't represent me if I won't tell him everything." Her voice cracked on the last word, just slightly, the first crack I'd heard in 16 years that wasn't performed for an audience. "Marcus, I don't know what to do." "You could start with the truth," I said. "That's usually where people begin. You don't understand the position I'm in." "Try me," I said again, same as the dinner before. "I understand pressure. I understand numbers. I've been looking at ours for 2 weeks straight." She didn't answer that. She looked at the counter, at the fruit bowl that had sat there through 16 years of mornings, and she said, "Quiet, Todd's company is going under. If it goes before the divorce is final, they can come after everything with both our names on it." "I know," I said. Her head came up fast. "You know?" "I've known for a while," I said. I didn't say anything because I didn't need to. I just needed to be accurate. She stared at me like she was seeing someone she'd never actually looked at before. Not really. Not in years. "Who told you?" "Nobody told me anything," I said. "I read the statements, same as I read everything else in this house. You should know that about me by now." She didn't cry, not in front of me. She went back upstairs and I heard her on the phone again a few minutes later, voice low through the floor, words I couldn't make out this time. I didn't go up to listen. I'd heard enough for one night. I called Denise before I went to bed. "Kessler's filing to withdraw," I said. "And she just admitted the guarantee to my face. Todd Mercer's company. The acceleration, all of it. Get that in writing if you can, Denise said. Text her something neutral tomorrow. See if she confirms it in a message. Anything on paper helps. I'm not trying to trap her, I said. I know, Denise said. But the judge doesn't care what you're trying to do. She cares what's on the record. 2 more days, Marcus. That's all we've got before Thursday. 2 days, I said. And for the first time since the letter on the kitchen table, since the email I wasn't supposed to see, it didn't feel like a countdown against me anymore. It felt like the 2 days I'd needed all along, closing in around her instead. I went out to the garage before bed, just to look at the gray box one more time. Not to open it. I already knew what was inside. I just wanted to see it sitting there, steady on its shelf, waiting for Thursday the same way it had waited 12 years for a day like this one. Denise called before I even had coffee going. Priya just phoned me, she said. Renata tried to use the joint debit card at the Millbrook branch this morning. Declined. Priya pulled her into a back office. What did she tell her? Exactly what she told us. Signature doesn't match your file. Applications flagged, accounts frozen, fraud units involved. Denise paused. There's one more thing. I got the full refinance file this morning, every page. Marcus, there's a second name on it. Whose? Todd Mercer. Listed as proposed co-borrower on a second mortgage against your house. $60,000 on top of the refinance. I set my cup down slow so it wouldn't rattle. He was trying to get his name on our deed. Not on the deed, Denise said. On the debt. If it went through, he'd have had a legal claim to collect against the house if things went bad. Convenient timing, since his company's about to go under. So this was never just about splitting assets in a divorce. No, Denise said. This was about getting Mercer a hook into $650,000 of equity before anyone could stop him. You weren't just an obstacle to a sale, Marcus. You were the last name standing between him and your house. I looked out at Corrigan Lane, quiet the way it always was that early, sprinklers ticking 2 yards down. Does the judge see this before Thursday? It goes in the packet today, Denise said, along with the bank's fraud referral and the rider. Kessler's motion to withdraw is on the docket, too. I think by tomorrow he's out and she's got maybe 48 hours to find someone new who'll even take this case. Good luck finding a lawyer who wants a forged signature walking in the door, I said. That's not my problem to solve, Denise said, and I heard the smile in it even though her voice stayed flat. Renata came home a little after 4, and I knew before she said a word. She didn't put her purse down where it always went, on the hook by the pantry. She just stood in the kitchen holding it like it was the only solid thing left in the room. My card got declined today, she said, in front of a line of people, at our bank. I heard, I said, and didn't pretend otherwise. You heard. Her voice cracked on the second word. From who? Denise. Priya called her. Renata's mouth opened, then closed. She set the purse down finally, hard on the counter. They think I forged something. Marcus, do you understand what that means for me? For my business? People saw me get pulled into a back office like a shoplifter. Did you forge something? I asked. Plain, no heat in it. She didn't answer right away. She walked to the sink, ran the water, shut it off again without filling anything. I needed the loan to close before the divorce, she said finally. I didn't think it would matter. A signature's a signature. It matters when it's not mine, I said. She turned around. You don't understand the position I was in. You keep saying that, I said. You still haven't told me what the position actually is. She looked at me a long moment like she was deciding how much rope to hand over. Todd needed capital fast. His bank called the guarantee early. If the company folds owing what it owes, the guarantee attaches to us, both of us, even after the divorce, if the timing's wrong. So the loan wasn't for the house, I said. It was for him. It was for both of us, she said, sharp now. If his company fails, it drags us down with it. I was trying to get ahead of it by putting his name on our house. Her face went pale in a way I hadn't seen since her mother's funeral. How do you know that? It's in the application, I said. 60,000 second mortgage, Todd Mercer, proposed co-borrower. My lawyer has the whole file. She sat down at the table then, slow, like her knees had made the decision without asking her. I told him not to do that, she said, quiet now, mostly to herself. I told him leave your name off it. But he didn't. No, she said, he didn't. I didn't say anything else. I let her sit with that a minute, the kitchen gone dead quiet except the refrigerator humming its same old hum, 16 years of that same sound behind every conversation we'd ever had in this room. She went up to bed without dinner. I heard her phone ring twice through the ceiling, heard her let it go to voicemail both times. My own phone rang a little after 9. Number I didn't know, area code local. I almost let it go too. Something made me pick up. Marcus Doyle? A man's voice, tight, fast, like he'd rehearsed the first line twice and forgotten the rest. This is Todd Mercer. I sat down at the kitchen table, same chair I'd been sitting in all week. I know who you are, I said. I figured you might, he said. Look, I'm not calling to cause problems. I just think you and I got put in the middle of something that's bigger than either of us. You put your name on paperwork for my house, I said. That's not the middle, that's the whole thing. That paperwork wasn't supposed to go anywhere without full agreement, he said. It was a contingency, in case things got tight. Things got tight, I said. That's exactly what happened. He went quiet a second, then softer, almost pleading. Marcus, if my company goes under before this divorce closes, the bank comes after Renata for the guarantee. That means they come after joint assets. That's not a threat. That's just the math. You should have thought about the math before you signed her name to something, I said. I didn't put anyone's name on anything without knowing, he said, too fast, and it landed wrong, the kind of denial that answers a question nobody asked yet. I'm not the one who forged a signature, Mr. Mercer, I said. I don't know what happened there, he said. That's between her and the bank. It's between all three of you now, I said. Bank knows. Fraud unit knows. County's going to know. My attorney's going to make sure the judge knows Thursday. Silence stretched out long enough I thought the call had dropped. I'm trying to save my company, he said finally. Quiet, almost young-sounding. I've got 12 guys on payroll. I've got a wife who doesn't know how bad it's gotten. That's not my company, I said, and she's not my problem to save. She's your wife's business partner, he said. That makes it your problem whether you like it or not. For 16 years, I ran my shop straight, I said. Every invoice checked twice, every account clean. I don't owe anyone a mess I didn't make. He didn't have an answer for that. Marcus, is there any way we can work something out before Thursday? Off the record, just the two of us. No, I said, and I meant it the way I meant everything else that week. Calm, flat, final. There's a hearing. There's a judge. That's where this gets worked out. I hung up before he could say anything else. I sat there a minute with the phone face down on the table, listening to the house settle around me the way it always did that time of night, the furnace ticking on, a car passing slow out on Corrigan Lane. I thought about 12 guys on a payroll somewhere in Delaware County who had no idea their jobs were riding on a forged signature 2 towns over. Not my fault. Not my fight. I called Denise anyway. Mercer just called me directly, I said. Trying to make a deal off the books. What did you tell him? Told him there's a hearing. Told him that's where it gets worked out. Good, Denise said. Write down everything he said while it's fresh. That's one more piece for the packet. Already writing, I said, and I was. Pen against a legal pad. Same handwriting my father used to use on his shop orders. Careful, even. No shake in it. Thursday's close now, Denise said. You ready? I looked toward the garage door, dark past the kitchen window, the gray box sitting quiet on its shelf where it had waited 12 years for exactly this. I've been ready since I found that box, I said. Then get some sleep, she said. Court doesn't care how tired you are. It only cares what's on the record. I didn't sleep much again that night, but for the first time in weeks, it wasn't dread keeping me up. It was just waiting, the way you wait on a glue joint to set before you trust it with weight. The next morning, I drove to the Millbrook branch myself, not First Ridge's downtown office, the one 2 blocks from my shop where I'd banked since I was 26. Priya Anand met me at the counter. Small woman, maybe 50, glasses on a chain, folder already in her hand like she'd been expecting me. Mr. Doyle, she said, I was hoping you'd come in, easier than the phone. We sat in a back office, not the one Renata got pulled into, she told me, a different room, but same building, same tile floor. I want to show you something, Priya said. She slid 2 signature cards across the table. This is your file signature, from 2019, our last update. And this one? From the refinance application, submitted 3 weeks ago. I looked at them side by side. My name, twice. Same letters, not the same hand. That's not close, I said. No, Priya said. It's not. Our fraud analyst flagged it in under a minute. Whoever signed this wasn't even trying hard to match your loop on the D. So what happens now? The application's voided, she said. Already done. The home equity line is frozen pending review. And I've referred the file to Delaware County. Not Union County, since the account itself is domiciled here in Millbrook. But the fraud unit covers both. You said referred, not reported. Referred, she said. Formally. There's a difference, but not one that helps your wife. I sat with that a second. Outside the little window, Main Street, a truck idling at the light. There's one more thing, Priya said. She turned a page. The application listed a co-borrower. Proposed, not approved. Todd Mercer. I know, I said. My attorney has that page too. I thought you should hear it from me, she said. Not just read it in a packet. I appreciate that. She closed the folder. Mr. Doyle, for what it's worth. In 11 years doing this job, I've seen maybe a dozen files this clean. Usually fraud's messy. Overlapping stories, missing statements. This one's just facts, lined up. I keep my books that way, I said. Figured I'd keep my marriage the same way, once I had to. She almost smiled at that. Good luck Thursday. I drove back to the shop and called Denise from the truck before I even got out. Priya just walked me through the signature cards herself, I said. In person. It's bad for her. Worse than I thought. I filed the emergency motion this morning, Denise said. Title hold ahead of Thursday. If the judge grants it, nobody can force a sale or a refinance on that house until the fraud referral clears, no matter what happens at the hearing. When do we know? Could be today. Judges move fast on title holds when there's an active bank referral attached. It's not a big ask. It's just a pause button. A pause button, I said. That's the story of my whole week. Speaking of which, Denise said, Kessler filed his withdrawal this morning too. 9:40, court records show it went in before he even called you. So, he's out. He's out unless the judge makes him stay on through Thursday for continuity. Some judges do that, but he's told the court he can't ethically continue without full client cooperation, and he's laid out why in the filing. It's not flattering to your wife. None of this is flattering to her, I said. She built the whole thing herself. I got back to the shop a little after 11 and found Renata's car in my driveway when I came home for lunch, which never happened. She never came by midday. She was standing at the kitchen island with her phone against her ear, 3 other calls already stacked on the screen. I could see the log when she set it down. They won't take the case, she said, mostly to herself, then looked up like she'd forgotten I lived there too. Marcus, I've called 4 firms since 8 this morning. And? They all know, she said. About the referral. It's like it's already all over Delaware County. Bank fraud referrals aren't quiet, I said. That's not how they're built. One of them actually said the word conflict, she said. Conflict of interest. Like I'm radioactive. You forged a signature on a loan document, I said. That tends to make lawyers nervous. She sat down at the island, phone face down now, hands flat on the counter like she was steadying herself against something only she could feel moving. I found someone, she said finally. A woman out of Delaware, name's Carol Whitfield. She'll take the case, but she can't get up to speed by Thursday. She's asking for a continuance. That's not up to me, I said. That's the judge's call. You could not oppose it, Renata said. Quiet, almost soft, the way she used to ask for things 16 years ago, before either of us had learned what the other one actually wanted. Just this once. I looked at her a long moment. Kitchen counter between us, same counter we'd eaten 1,000 breakfasts on. I'm not the one slowing this down, I said. I've been ready for 2 weeks. You built a fire, and now you want more time to stand next to it. Her jaw worked, no words coming out of it for a second. Denise will fight the continuance, I said. That's her job. Mine's just showing up Thursday and telling the truth when I'm asked. You make it sound so simple. It is simple, I said. That's the part you never believed. She left without lunch, without another word, car pulling out of the driveway too fast for a residential street on Corrigan Lane. I stood at the window and watched her taillights disappear past the Hendersons' place, and I thought about Carol Whitfield, a lawyer I'd never met, walking into a case with a forged signature, a fraud referral, and a second mortgage scheme already sitting in the file before she'd even had her first real conversation with her client. Denise called around 4. Judge granted the title hold, she said. Effective immediately. Nobody touches that deed till this clears. And the continuance? Renata's got a new lawyer asking for more time. I already filed our opposition, Denise said. Told the judge Mr. Doyle's compliant, cooperative, ready to proceed, and that further delay only benefits a party under active fraud investigation. Judge set a short hearing for tomorrow morning just to rule on that one issue. Tomorrow, I said. Not Thursday. Tomorrow's just about the calendar, Denise said. Thursday's still the real one, assuming the judge keeps the date, which I expect she will. Judges don't love handing more runway to someone with a bank referral attached to their name. I stood in my own kitchen a long minute after we hung up, phone still warm in my hand, the fireproof box sitting out in the garage the way it had all week, patient as anything. I hadn't opened it since the first night. I didn't need to. I already knew what was folded inside, my father's handwriting on a single page, words I'd read maybe 6 times in 12 years and never once needed until now. I thought about Carol Whitfield reading through that same client file tonight, somewhere in Delaware, Ohio, learning for the first time exactly what she'd agreed to defend. I thought that whatever she found in there, it wasn't going to be enough. Not against a writer recorded 12 years before any of this started, sitting quiet on a shelf in my garage, waiting on Thursday the way it always had. Court records in Delaware County move fast when a bank referral is attached to a name. I learned that the next morning, sitting on a hard bench outside courtroom 4B, watching a woman I'd shared a bed with for 16 years pretend she didn't see me. Denise sat beside me, folder closed on her lap, calm as a Sunday. This is just the continuance, she said. 10 minutes, maybe less. Feels longer already, I said. Renata sat 2 benches up, with a woman I didn't recognize. 50s, gray suit, briefcase thin enough to hold maybe 1 file. Carol Whitfield. She kept glancing at her watch like it might tell her something the case file wouldn't. The bailiff called us in a little after 9. Judge Aldridge didn't look up from her screen at first. Motion for continuance, Doyle versus Doyle. Ms. Whitfield, your new counsel of record as of yesterday. Yes, Your Honor. I need time to review a complex file. How complex? There's a pending fraud referral, Whitfield said. I'd like adequate time to advise my client. The judge looked up then. Not unkind, just direct. Ms. Ferraro? Denise stood, unhurried. Your Honor, Mr. Doyle's been ready to proceed for 2 weeks. The fraud referral isn't a reason to delay this hearing. It's the reason it needs to happen on schedule. Explain that. There's an emergency title hold in place, Denise said. Every day this drags is a day the bank and the county sit on an open file with no resolution. My client wants this settled. He's not the one asking for more time. Judge Aldridge tapped her pen twice against the folder. Ms. Whitfield, I understand you're new to this, but I'm not inclined to reward a continuance request when the complexity in question was created by the moving party. She looked toward Renata for half a second. Motion denied. Thursday's hearing stands. Whitfield didn't argue. She just nodded, the kind of nod that meant she already knew. Outside on the courthouse steps, I didn't say anything to Renata. She didn't say anything to me either. We just stood on the same concrete a minute, 2 people waiting on different rides. Denise walked me to my truck. That went the way it should have, she said. Doesn't feel like winning, I said. It's not supposed to yet, she said. It's supposed to feel like nothing's slipping. That afternoon back at the shop, I was running a bead of glue down a face frame when my phone buzzed. Denise again. Priya just called me, she said. Not about the loan this time. About something bigger. How much bigger? Todd Mercer's bank sent a formal default notice yesterday, she said. His company missed a payment threshold. That guarantee Renata co-signed, the $180,000, it's live now, not a threat anymore, an actual demand. I set the clamp down slow. Meaning what? Exactly. Meaning his bank can come after both signers for the full balance, Denise said. Renata included. Right now, divorce or no divorce. That's why she filed, I said. Quiet, mostly to myself. That's the whole reason for the rush. I think so, Denise said. She needed the house sold and this marriage closed before that default notice landed. She just ran out of clock. I stood there in the shop a minute, sawdust on the bench, the smell of walnut and glue thick in the air. 16 years married to a woman I thought I knew, and the whole time there'd been a second ledger running under ours, one I never got to see until it was already collapsing. Does this change Thursday? I asked. It sharpens it, Denise said. Now there's a real number attached. $180,000 due, with her name on it. If that hearing had gone her way, she'd have walked out with cash from the house before that debt ever touched her. And instead, she's got a frozen title, a fraud referral, and a debt collector's letter arriving the same week, Denise said. That's not bad luck, Marcus. That's math catching up. I didn't feel any triumph in it. Just a kind of tired clarity, the kind you get sanding a board down to the grain and finding the crack was always there. You just hadn't gone deep enough yet to see it. Wednesday night, Denise came by the shop instead of the house. Said she liked working somewhere that smelled like cedar instead of a law office. We spread the file across my workbench, corner of it still dusted pale from the morning's cuts. Walk me through it again, she said, start to finish. Tomorrow, I don't want a single gap. I laid it out the way I'd laid out 100 invoices before her. The forwarded email, the 3 days moving accounts, the process server on Grady Watson's job site, the forged signature, Todd Mercer's name on the co-borrower line, the title hold, the default notice. And the writer, Denise said. I walked to the shelf at the back, past the finishing rack, and brought down the gray box. Set it on the bench between us, dull metal under the shop lights. You've read it, Denise said, word for word. I know what it says, I said. I haven't read it out loud to anybody. Not even you? Not all of it? Tomorrow you won't have to, she said. I will. I opened the box anyway, not because I needed to check, because some habits don't leave you just because you've earned the right to stop. My father's letter sat folded on top, same as always. I didn't unfold it, just looked at it a second like I was checking it was still breathing. I hope you never need this, but if you do, you already have it. He knew, I said. 16 years ago, he already knew there'd be a day like tomorrow. Fathers who build things for a living tend to plan for the joint that fails, Denise said. Not because they expect it to, because they've seen enough wood to know which ones do. I closed the box, set it back on the shelf, careful, level, the way I set everything. Get some sleep, Denise said, gathering her folder. Court doesn't care how ready you feel walking in. It only cares what's on the record when you leave. I didn't sleep much. I lay there listening to the house, same sounds it always made, furnace, gutter creak, a dog 2 yards over that barked at nothing around midnight. Renata's side of the bed had been cold for over a week. I'd stopped noticing the specific ache of that and started just noticing the fact of it, the way you stop noticing a scar once it's finished healing wrong. Thursday morning, I put on the one suit I owned, the one from my father's funeral, still fit fine, wool a little heavier than the July air wanted. I drove to Delaware County with the windows down anyway, County Road turning to 4-lane, turning to courthouse parking, same route as the continuance hearing, except this time nothing about it felt like a formality. Denise was waiting on the steps, folder under one arm, the file 3 inches thick now, tabs bristling out the side like a hedge. Ready? She asked. I've been ready since I found that box, I said. Across the lot, Renata got out of her own car, Carol Whitfield beside her, both of them walking slower than people usually walk toward something they want. Renata glanced my way once. I didn't look away this time. Just held it a second, calm, the way I'd look at a board before I decided whether it was worth the cut. Let's go, Denise said, and we went in through the same doors, past the same metal detector, toward courtroom 4B, where a judge was about to hear 2 very different versions of the same 16 years, and only one of them had a writer recorded 12 years deep in the Union County file to back it up. Courtroom 4B smelled like carpet cleaner and old paper. Judge Aldridge sat already reading when the bailiff waved us in. Denise took the table on the right. I sat behind her, same bench as the continuance hearing, wood hard under me. Renata sat across the aisle. Carol Whitfield beside her, thin folder open now, tabs sticking out like she'd worked all night to catch up. Doyle versus Doyle, the clerk said. Motion to compel sale of marital residence. Judge Aldridge looked up. Ms. Whitfield, your motion. Whitfield stood, straightened her jacket first. Your Honor, the marital home on Corrigan Lane represents the bulk of this couple's assets. My client requests an order compelling sale, with proceeds split per Ohio equitable distribution. Any dispute on value? The judge asked. $650,000, Whitfield said. Both parties agree on that figure. Denise stood. We don't dispute the value, Your Honor. We dispute the premise that it's simply hers to force. Explain. There's a recorded rider on that deed, Denise said, filed at the Union County Recorder's Office 12 years ago. It conditions any refinance or encumbrance on written trust consent. My client's father drafted it before he passed. Whitfield's head turned toward Renata. Just slightly. The kind of look that means nobody warned you about this. We'll get to the rider, Judge Aldridge said. Ms. Whitfield, continue your motion first. Whitfield nodded, gathered herself. Your Honor, I'd also note a concern. In the days before this filing, Mr. Doyle moved every joint account into his sole name. Every credit line, closed. That's not the conduct of a man with nothing to hide. I felt my jaw tighten. Didn't say a word. Denise didn't even blink. Your Honor, Moving funds into individual accounts during a pending separation isn't concealment. It's documented, itemized, and available in full. My client can account for every dollar to the penny. Every dollar, the judge repeated. Every dollar, Denise said. In fact, that itemization is what led us somewhere else entirely. Go on. Denise opened her folder, pulled one page. While reconciling the joint account history, Mr. Doyle identified a recurring transfer, $2,400 a month every month for the last 11 months, labeled consulting fee. Whitfield's pen stopped moving. Consulting fee to whom? The judge asked. Mercer Comfort Systems, Denise said. Owned and operated by Todd Mercer. Same Todd Mercer listed as proposed co-borrower on a refinance application submitted under Mrs. Doyle's name, without Mr. Doyle's actual signature. The room got quieter. Not dramatic, just quieter, the way a shop goes still when a saw finally stops. That's a serious allegation, Judge Aldridge said. It's not an allegation, Your Honor. It's a bank finding. Denise set another page on the podium. First, Ridge Bank's fraud unit reviewed the signature card in person. Their fraud analyst compared it to 11 years of Mr. Doyle's file signatures. She confirmed a mismatch and voided the application. That report's been referred to Delaware County. Whitfield stood halfway, sat back down. Your Honor, my client wasn't aware of any signature discrepancy. If there's an error in the paperwork— An error, Denise said. Just that. Let it sit a second. Ms. Whitfield, the judge said, was your client aware of the $2,400 monthly transfers to Mr. Mercer's company? Whitfield turned to Renata, leaned close, whispered something. Renata's face didn't move, but her hands did, folding into each other under the table. Your Honor, Whitfield said, I'd ask a moment to confer with my client. You'll have one, the judge said, but I want the record clear on something first. Ms. Ferraro, are you telling this court there's an active fraud referral tied to the very refinance this sale motion depends on? I am, Your Honor, and a title hold's already in place because of it. Since when? 2 days ago, granted by this same court. Judge Aldridge sat back, looked at Renata for a second, then at Whitfield. That changes the posture of this motion considerably. Your Honor, Whitfield said, I'd like that recess now. 10 minutes, the judge said. Court's in brief recess. Denise sat down beside me, calm as ever, folder still open on her lap. That wasn't the writer, I said, low. You didn't even get to it. Didn't need to yet, she said. The consulting fee did the work. Now they know we're not guessing. We're documented. Across the aisle, Whitfield and Renata had their heads together, voices too quiet to carry, but Renata's shoulders had come up around her ears, the way they did years ago whenever a caterer canceled 2 days before an event, and she had to fix it standing in a parking lot with her phone in one hand. I watched her a second. Didn't feel satisfaction. Felt something closer to recognizing a stranger. Todd Mercer's name, spoken out loud in a courtroom, for the first time since I'd found it printed on that co-borrower line. It landed different hearing it said instead of read. She's calling someone, I said, nodding toward the hallway door, where Renata had slipped out mid-recess, phone already at her ear. Let her, Denise said. Nothing she says now changes what's on the record. This is a paper case, Marcus. It always was. Feels like more than paper in there, I said. It always does, Denise said, right up until the judge reads the last page. She flipped to a fresh tab in the folder. Behind it, I could see the edge of another document, header cut off, but I recognized the font. Same font as the copy sitting folded in my father's letter, the one Denise had photographed off my kitchen table 2 weeks ago, and never once let out of her sight since. That's the writer, I said. That's the writer, she said. We're not done in there yet. Through the hallway door glass, I could see Renata pacing, one hand pressed flat against her forehead, phone still up, mouth moving fast. Whoever was on the other end wasn't saying much back, from the look of it. Just letting her talk into a call that wasn't going to fix anything sitting in a folder 20 feet away. The bailiff opened the door. Courts reconvening. Renata came back in last, phone already pocketed, face reset into something calmer than what I'd just watched through the glass. She sat. Whitfield stood before the judge even called on her. "Your Honor," Whitfield said, "given the circumstances just disclosed, I'd ask the court's patience while we address the fraud matter separately from today's motion." "We're not separating anything," Judge Aldridge said. "If there's a rider on this deed and a fraud referral tied to the refinance behind this motion, I want both on the record before I rule on anything." She looked to our table. "Ms. Ferraro, let's hear about this rider." Denise stood, folder open, page already marked. "Your Honor," she said, "with the court's permission, I'd like to read it into the record." Denise squared the page on the podium. "This is a certified copy," she said, "recorded at the Union County Recorder's Office 12 years ago. Instrument number is on the header if the court wants to verify." "Go ahead," Judge Aldridge said. Denise read slow, not for effect, just careful, like she was measuring a cut. The sum of $140,000 advanced toward the purchase of the property located at Corrigan Lane, Millbrook, Ohio, is a documented gift from the Doyle Family Trust. Any future refinance, second mortgage, or other encumbrance against said property requires written consent from the trust prior to execution. She looked up. Signed by Walter J. Doyle, trustee. Witnessed and notarized. Filed the same day as the deed. Nobody in the room moved for a second. Whitfield stood halfway up. "Your Honor, that language is 12 years old. My client may not have even been aware. She was at the closing," Denise said. "Her signature's on the settlement statement acknowledging the rider by page number. That doesn't mean she understood the legal effect. She doesn't need to have understood it," Denise said. "She needed to get written consent before she tried to refinance against it. She didn't, because she couldn't. Because Walter Doyle passed 4 years ago, and the trust hasn't had anyone but my client to speak for it since." Judge Aldridge held out a hand. "Let me see the original." Denise walked it up. The judge read it herself this time, slower than Denise had, glasses pushed down her nose. Behind me, the room had gone quiet enough that I could hear the air handler kick on somewhere in the ceiling. "This predates the marriage's later assets significantly," the judge said. "If this rider is valid, and I have no reason yet to think it isn't, then any encumbrance placed on this property without trust consent would be voidable, possibly void from the start." "That's our position," Denise said. Whitfield's voice came out tighter now. "Your Honor, even granting the rider's validity, this is a motion to sell the marital home, not to refinance it. The rider's language is about encumbrances. A sale isn't an encumbrance." "A fair point," the judge said. "But you brought me a motion built on a valuation that assumes clean title and no competing claim. If there's a trust interest attached to the down payment, this court needs to know how a sale would even divide proceeds before I order one." "We'd argue the trust's claim is speculative," Whitfield said. "It's recorded," Denise said. "That's the opposite of speculative." Judge Aldridge set the page down and looked at Whitfield a long moment. "Counsel, does your client have any documentation showing she obtained consent from this trust before submitting a refinance application in her name?" Whitfield turned toward Renata. I watched Renata's face for the first time all morning without her looking away first. She looked like someone doing math she didn't want the answer to. "No, Your Honor," Whitfield said finally. "Not that I've seen." "Then we have 2 problems stacked on top of each other," the judge said. "A refinance application with a signature that doesn't match the co-borrower's bank file, and a deed with a rider that required consent nobody obtained." Ms. Ferraro, you said there's a fraud report. There is, Denise said, prepared by First Ridge Bank's fraud review officer, Priya Anand. She examined the signature card in person against 11 years of file history. Is she available to speak to her own findings? I don't take a written report as gospel when the underlying claim is this serious. I want it from the person who made it. Denise glanced at me, just briefly. She can be reached today, Your Honor. She indicated she'd cooperate with any inquiry from the court. Then let's not wait on that, Judge Aldridge said. Clerk, see if we can get her on the phone this afternoon, or in person if she's local enough. I'm not ruling on a forced sale with a live fraud allegation sitting unaddressed on the same file. Whitfield looked like she wanted to object and couldn't find the shape of one. Your Honor, that would push this hearing. It'll push it a few hours, Ms. Whitfield. Not weeks. I'm not continuing this to next month. I said Thursday, and I meant today. The judge tapped the folder once. We'll break until 2. If Ms. Anand can appear or be reached by phone, we'll hear directly from her. If she can't, I'll rule on what's in front of me, and what's in front of me right now doesn't look good for your motion. Understood, Your Honor, Whitfield said, sitting. Anything else before recess? Denise shook her head. Not at this time. Court's in recess until 2 o'clock. The bailiff called it, and the room exhaled all at once, chairs scraping, voices coming back up to normal volume like someone had turned a dial. I sat there a second, hands flat on my knees, feeling something I hadn't let myself feel yet that morning. Not victory, just the sense of a board finally sitting flush after you've shimmed it 3 times. Denise slid the writer back into its sleeve, careful with it, like it mattered more now than it had an hour ago. That went further than I expected this early, she said. You didn't think she'd fold that fast? I thought Whitfield would fight the writer's validity harder, Denise said. She didn't, because she can't. There's nothing to fight. It's recorded, it's notarized, it's 12 years old, and it's never been challenged because nobody ever needed to challenge it until now. Out in the hallway, I called the shop. Told my one part-time guy, Dwayne, to lock up if I wasn't back by 3, that I'd catch the rest of the week's cuts tomorrow. He asked how it went. I said, still going. That was true enough. Denise stepped away to call Priya Anand's direct line, the one printed on the fraud report letterhead. I watched her through the window of the little side room they let lawyers use, pacing, phone to her ear, nodding at something I couldn't hear. She came out a few minutes later. She can be here by 1:30, Denise said. She said, and I'm quoting her, she's been waiting for someone to actually ask her to say it out loud in a room. Meaning what? Meaning the bank flagged this internally weeks ago and it just sat in a queue, Denise said. She wants it on the record as much as we do, maybe more. Across the hallway, Whitfield had Renata pulled into a corner near the vending machines. Voices low, urgent. I couldn't hear words, just the rhythm of it. Whitfield talking fast and flat. Renata's arms crossed tight over a blazer that looked a size too warm for July. She's going to call him, I said. Mercer? Who else? Let her, Denise said. Every call she makes right now just gives the fraud unit another number to pull records on later. Nothing she does in that hallway helps her. I believed her. Mostly. But I still watched Renata's phone come out the second Whitfield stepped away toward the restroom, watched her thumb move fast across the screen, watched her walk toward the stairwell door like she needed air that wasn't shared with the rest of us. 16 years, and I still knew that walk. The one she used when something was slipping and she hadn't decided yet how to talk her way back on top of it. I didn't follow her. Wasn't my job anymore to chase down what she was thinking? Denise was right about one thing. Whatever Renata said into that phone in the stairwell wasn't going to change what was sitting on the judge's desk, wrapped in a certified copy with an instrument number stamped across the top, older than the trouble it was about to end. We had an hour and a half before Priya Anand walked into that courtroom and said out loud what her report only whispered on paper. I spent it the way I spend most hours that matter. Quiet. Checked my phone once, twice, watched the minutes tick past on the courthouse clock in the lobby, and thought about my father setting his coffee down at a closing table 12 years back, telling some notary, just in case, like he already knew there'd be a Thursday like this one waiting on the other side of it. Court had been back only a few minutes when the side door opened and a woman in a navy blazer stepped through, laptop bag over one shoulder, ID badge still clipped to her collar. First Ridge Bank, Priya Anand. Denise stood right up. Your Honor, this is Ms. Anand. Come forward, Judge Aldridge said. You understand you're here to testify to your own findings, not read someone else's report? I do, Your Honor, Priya said. I wrote the report myself. She sat in the witness chair like she'd done it before, hands folded, no notes. Tell the court what you found, the judge said. On June the 9th, a refinance application came through under Renata Doyle's name, Priya said. Corrigan Lane property, Millbrook. $62,000 in cash out requested. Whitfield's pen moved fast, writing that number down like she hadn't heard it before. The application listed a co-borrower, Priya said. Todd Mercer, owner of Mercer Comfort Systems. Go on, the judge said. Standard procedure, we pull the file signature for anyone listed on a joint account tied to the loan, Priya said. Marcus Doyle's is on file 11 years back. I compared it myself. Slant, pressure, letter spacing. It didn't match. How confident are you in that assessment? The judge asked. Confident enough that I flagged it before I even finished the file, Priya said. I've done 400 of these, maybe more. This wasn't close. Whitfield stood. Your Honor, may I ask a few questions? Go ahead. Whitfield turned to Priya, voice careful. Isn't it possible a signature simply changes over time? People's handwriting drifts? It drifts, Priya said. It doesn't reverse itself. Mr. Doyle writes his capital M with a hook at the top. Always has, all 11 years. This signature didn't have the hook. That's your professional opinion. It's the bank's finding, Priya said, not just mine. 2 other reviewers confirmed it before I filed. Whitfield tried once more. Did my client provide that signature? The application came in under a joint portal login, Priya said. Mrs. Doyle's credentials. That doesn't mean she forged anything herself. No, Priya said. It means somebody did, using her access. I don't investigate who held the pen. I investigate whether the signature's real. It isn't. The room sat with that a second. Judge Aldridge leaned forward. Ms. Anand, you mentioned a co-borrower, Todd Mercer. Did your review turn up anything else tied to that name? Priya opened her laptop bag, pulled a single page. When a co-borrower's added to an application, we run a debt cross-check. Standard underwriting. Mr. Mercer's business, Mercer Comfort Systems, carries a $180,000 credit line with First Ridge. And? Personal guarantee attached, Priya said. Signed by Renata Doyle. Whitfield's face didn't move. Renata's did. When was that guarantee signed? The judge asked. 14 months ago, Priya said. The account's been delinquent 90 days. Under our terms, that puts it 3 weeks from formal default. Nobody in the gallery made a sound. I felt my own breath catch somewhere in my chest, like a nail gun jamming mid-shot. 3 weeks, the judge repeated. Give or take, Priya said. After default, the bank has the right to pursue the guarantor directly, not the business, her. Denise didn't even look at me, just wrote something small in the margin of her legal pad, underlined it twice. Your Honor, Whitfield said, standing again, slower this time. This guarantee isn't part of today's motion. It's part of today's picture, Judge Aldridge said. You brought me a forced sale motion built on urgency. Now I understand the urgency. She looked at Renata directly. Mrs. Doyle, is that 90-day delinquency accurate? Renata's mouth opened. Nothing came for a second. I'd need to review the account, she said finally. That's not a no, the judge said. Whitfield leaned toward her client, whispered something sharp. Renata's jaw tightened. I thought about the $2,400 a month. 11 months. $26,400. Moving quiet out of an account we'd shared since our first year married, dressed up as a consulting fee. Money going out to keep Mercer's company breathing a little longer while the guarantee behind it kept ticking toward zero. It wasn't a gift, it was a bailout. And the house on Corrigan Lane was supposed to be the thing that covered the hole once the bailout ran dry. Ms. Anand, Denise said, does the bank's fraud unit typically refer findings like this to any outside body? We do, Priya said. Signature mismatch on a real estate refinance goes to the county fraud unit automatically. That referral went out this morning. Delaware County? Correct. Judge Aldridge sat back, hands folded over the file. Let me make sure I understand the full shape of this. A $62,000 refinance, filed under a forged signature, naming as co-borrower a man who already owes this same bank $180,000 he can't pay. Against a house with a recorded rider that required consent nobody obtained. Is that a fair summary, Ms. Ferraro? That's the record, Your Honor, Denise said. Ms. Whitfield? Whitfield stood a long moment before she answered. Your Honor, I'd like a formal recess to consult with my client on the guarantee issue specifically. This wasn't disclosed to me before today. That last part landed different. Quiet, but it landed. Whitfield hadn't known. Whatever Renata told her lawyer going into this hearing, the $180,000 wasn't in it. I'll grant that, the judge said, but I want to be efficient. We're not spending another day on this. When we come back, I expect an answer on whether your client intends to contest the fraud referral, and I'll rule on the sale motion and the title hold together. She looked at the clock on the side wall. 15 minutes. Thank you, Your Honor, Whitfield said. The gavel tapped once, soft, more habit than force. Recess. Renata didn't move right away. Whitfield had to touch her arm to get her standing. When she finally did, she didn't look at me. Didn't look at Denise. Looked at the exit like it was the only honest thing left in the room. I sat there, hands on my knees again. That same bored flush feeling from before, except heavier now. Denise capped her pen. She didn't tell her own lawyer, I said, low. No, Denise said, which means Whitfield's about to have a very different conversation with her client than the one she planned on having. You think Renata knew the account was that close to default? She signed the guarantee, Denise said. She knew the number the day she signed it. Whether she tracked it every month after, that's a different question. But she knew the shape of what was coming. That's why the filing happened when it did. Not because your marriage hit some breaking point, because a clock was running out somewhere else, and this house was supposed to stop it. I thought about all those nights she'd stepped out onto the back patio with her phone, voice low, door pulled almost shut. Told me it was a vendor, a florist running late on an order, a venue double booking a Saturday. I'd believed her mostly because there'd never been a reason not to. T? I said, in her phone. That's him. Mercer. Almost certainly, Denise said. Priya's report will confirm it if the fraud unit pulls the call logs, but I'd bet the account on it. Through the hallway glass, Whitfield had Renata backed into the same corner as before, near the vending machines, except this time Renata wasn't talking. Whitfield was, fast and low, one hand cutting the air between them like she was trying to get something straight before the 15 minutes ran out. I watched a second, then looked away. Not out of mercy, just because there wasn't anything left in that conversation that belonged to me anymore. Denise gathered her folder, squared the pages, rider on top, fraud report behind it, the itemized transfer log beneath that. $26,400, $62,000 in requested cash out, $180,000 hanging over Mercer's company like a held breath, $650,000 sitting under all of it in a house on Corrigan Lane that wasn't going anywhere without a trust signature first. 15 minutes, she said, checking her watch. Let's see what she walks back in with. 15 minutes felt longer than 15 minutes. It always does when you're the one waiting on someone else's math to catch up. Whitfield came back first, alone, no Renata beside her. "Where's your client?" the judge asked before Whitfield had even reached the table. "She's coming, Your Honor." She needed a moment. Denise leaned toward me. "That's not a good sign for them," she said. Quiet. Lawyers don't walk in ahead of their own client unless they're bracing for something. Renata came through the door a minute later. No blazer this time, just the sleeveless top underneath, like the extra layer had gotten to be too much. Her eyes were red at the rims, not crying, close to it. She sat, didn't look at me. "Ms. Whitfield," the judge said, "you asked for this recess to discuss the guarantee with your client. Where do we stand?" Whitfield squared a folder she wasn't going to open. "Your Honor, my client is prepared to withdraw the motion to force the sale." The room didn't gasp. Courtrooms don't do that. But I felt Denise go still beside me, the good kind of still, the kind that means a fight just ended before it had to get uglier. "Withdraw it entirely?" the judge asked. "Entirely," Whitfield said. "In light of the title issue and the pending fraud referral, we don't believe the motion is viable as filed." Judge Aldridge looked at Renata over her glasses. "Mrs. Doyle, is that your decision? Freely made?" Renata's voice came out smaller than I'd heard it in 16 years. "Yes, Your Honor." "All right." The judge picked up her pen. "The motion to force sale of the Corrigan Lane property is withdrawn with prejudice. The court is entering a title hold on that property, effective today, pending resolution of the recorded consent issue and the fraud referral to the Delaware County unit. Neither party is to attempt any refinance, sale, or encumbrance on that property without further order of this court." She wrote as she talked, unhurried. "The refinance application dated June 9th is void. First Ridge Bank's fraud unit will handle it from here. If the county wants to pursue charges related to the signature, that's their call, not mine. My only job today was the house, and the house isn't moving." She set the pen down. "Mr. Doyle keeps the home during the pendency of this divorce. Any future motion regarding the property will need to address the trust's interest directly, with the trust as a party. That's not optional. That rider isn't going anywhere." Whitfield said, "Understood, Your Honor," in the flat voice of someone reading off a card. "Anything further?" "No, Your Honor," Denise said. "Then we're adjourned on this matter. Ms. Whitfield, Mrs. Doyle, I'd suggest getting ahead of that guarantee situation before First Ridge does it for you." The gavel came down once. Soft, like before. Final, anyway. People started moving, folders closing, chairs scraping back. I sat there another second, same as after the morning recess, except this time there was nothing left hanging over the desk. No hour and a half of waiting. Just a ruling, written down, done. Denise touched my arm. "That's it," she said. "That's the whole thing." "Feels fast," I said. "It's not fast. It's 12 years of your father being careful, landing in one afternoon." She started packing the folder. Rider back on top. "You want fast? Fast is what she tried to do to you. 6 weeks from filing to a forced sale, if it had gone through clean. This took a Thursday because the paperwork was already sitting there waiting to be read." Out in the hallway, Whitfield had her hand on Renata's shoulder, saying something low. Renata wasn't listening. She was looking at me across the hall, the first real look all day, like she wanted to say something and didn't have the shape of it yet either. I walked toward the exit. Didn't rush it, didn't slow down for her, just walked. She caught up anyway, a few steps, voice pitched low enough that only I'd hear it. "You could have told me," she said, "about the rider. Before all this." I stopped, looked at her. "You could have told me about the 180,000, I said, before any of this." She didn't have an answer for that. Just stood there in the hallway of the Delaware County Courthouse, 16 years compressed down into 2 sentences neither of us wanted to be the last one standing on. "Is it true?" I asked. "The guarantee? 3 weeks?" Her jaw worked a second. "Something like that. Mercer know you were about to force a sale to cover it?" "Marcus, don't." "I'm not yelling," I said. "I don't do that. I'm asking." She looked past me, toward the doors, toward the parking lot, toward anywhere that wasn't this conversation. "He needed the capital," she said. "The business needed the capital. I thought if the house sold before the default hit, I could cover my exposure and it would just go away. And if it didn't sell in time?" She didn't answer that one either. Didn't have to. The silence did it for her. "I hope it works out for you," I said. "And I meant it, mostly, the way you mean it for someone you used to build a whole life with, even after the life stops making sense. I'm not going to be the one who fixes it, though." I walked out into the parking lot. July heat came down flat and heavy off the asphalt, the kind of afternoon where the air over a parked car shimmers if you look at it right. Denise caught up a minute later, keys in hand. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know yet," I said. "Ask me next week." "Fair." She unlocked her car. "For what it's worth, Marcus, that was about as clean a win as this job gives you. No screaming match. No drama for a judge to referee beyond what was already on paper. Just facts stacked in order until there was nothing left to argue." "My father used to say something like that," I said. "About cabinetry, not court. Get the measurements right and the rest takes care of itself." "He wasn't wrong," Denise said. "Go home, Marcus. Actual home this time. Nobody's taking it from you." I drove back into Millbrook with the windows down, the smell of cut grass and asphalt coming through, past the Union County line where the deed itself had been sitting recorded for 12 years, page after page, waiting on exactly this kind of Thursday. Past the bank, First Ridge, where Priya Anand was probably still finishing whatever paperwork closes out a day like today. Past the turn for Corrigan Lane, where the house was standing there being nothing more than a house again. No motion attached to it, no hearing left to schedule. I didn't go home right away. I went to the shop instead. Dwayne had already locked up, like I'd told him to, but I had my own key. I let myself in, flipped the lights, stood there a second in the smell of sawdust and varnish that never really leaves a place like that no matter how long the doors stay shut. There was a cabinet door on the bench, half sanded from 2 days ago, before any of this started moving through a courtroom. I ran a hand over the grain. Rough on one side, smooth where I'd already worked it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked at it. Unknown number, Delaware County area code. I let it ring out. Whoever it was could leave a message. It buzzed again a second later, a voicemail alert this time. I picked up the sandpaper instead. Worked the rough half of the door in slow, even strokes, the same rhythm I'd used 1,000 times before any of this had a case number attached to it. The voicemail sat there blinking for 2 days. I wasn't ignoring it out of spite. I just didn't have room in my head for one more voice telling me something had gone sideways. I sanded that cabinet door until the grain came up smooth and pale. Then I sanded 3 more after it, because that's what a Friday looks like when you own the shop and nobody's rushing you. "Saturday morning," Denise called instead. I picked up that one. "You never called Whitfield back," she said. "Didn't figure I owed her a call back. You don't." "But she left that voicemail for a reason, Marcus. I got my own version of it Thursday night." A pause. First Ridge called the line of credit. Mercer Comfort Systems is in default. Actual default, not the 90-day kind. I set the sandpaper down. All ready? Priya's referral moved fast once the fraud unit confirmed the signature. Once the bank started really looking at that file, they looked at everything attached to it, the guarantee included. So they came after Renata. They called the note, Denise said, $180,000, due in full, 30 days. She's the guarantor. That's not a discussion. That's a bill. I thought about Corrigan Lane, sitting there with its title hold, $650,000 of house that wasn't going anywhere for either of us. I thought about the $26,400 she'd already bled out of our joint account trying to keep Mercer's company breathing. She can't touch the house, I said, not even to cover it. Not without me hearing about it first, Denise said, and not without the trust's consent, which she still doesn't have. That was the whole point of your father's rider, Marcus. It doesn't just protect you from a divorce, it protects that house from anybody's creditors, hers included. I stood there in the shop a second, phone against my ear, watching dust hang in the light coming through the front window. What happens to her? I asked. If she can't pay it? Same thing that happens to anybody who signs a personal guarantee they can't back up, Denise said. The bank sues on the note. They can go after other assets, bank accounts, if she's got any left with equity in them, her half of anything not protected. She let that sit. It's not going to touch your half. It can't, but it's coming for hers. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I might feel hearing that. Mostly I just felt tired, the kind that isn't about sleep. What about Mercer? I asked. Business bankruptcy filing, most likely. Priya says the account's been underwater for months. He was always going to lose the company. The only question was whether he took your house down with it on the way out. He didn't. No, Denise said. He didn't. Monday, Dwayne came in early, before I'd even gotten the lights on, coffee in one hand, a stack of invoices in the other. You look like you slept, he said. That's new. Slept fine, I said. Told you it was going to work out. You told me nothing. You told me I'll handle it. And then you handled it so quiet I didn't know it was happening till the Millbrook paper ran 3 lines about a fraud referral out of the county courthouse. He set the invoices down. Doyle, that's your name in there. Not by name, I said. Case number only. Everybody in this town reads between 3 lines, Marcus. You know that. He poured himself coffee from the pot in the back. You good? I'm accurate, I said. That's about as good as I get these days. He laughed at that, short and real, and went back to the invoices like it was any other Monday, which for him, it mostly was. For me, it wasn't, not yet, but it was getting there one morning at a time. The follow-up hearing came 3 weeks later, back at the Delaware County Courthouse, this time just for the divorce itself. No forced sale attached, no motion to argue over. Judge Aldridge again, same courtroom, less of an audience this time. Whitfield sat beside Renata, both of them quieter than the first time around. Denise laid the settlement out plain. The house stayed with me, subject to the trust, no dispute left on that point since the rider had already settled it. Renata kept her half of the retirement accounts we'd built over 16 years, about $91,000 by the last statement Denise had pulled. She kept her car. She kept the event planning business, for whatever that was worth against $180,000 she now owed First Ridge directly. Any objection to the settlement as proposed? The judge asked. Whitfield glanced at Renata. Renata shook her head, small. No objection, Your Honor. Then I'll sign off. The judge looked at both of us over her glasses, the same look she'd given us weeks before. Mr. Doyle, Mrs. Doyle. This marriage is dissolved as of today's entry. I hope you both find steadier ground than what brought you in here. Outside, in the same hallway, past the same vending machines, Renata stopped me one more time. No blazer today either. Just a plain gray coat, like she'd stopped dressing for anything but the weather. "Mercer's gone," she said. "Filed bankruptcy Thursday. I heard. I'm still on the hook for the guarantee. Bankruptcy doesn't touch that, since it was me who signed, not him." She looked down the hall, not at me. "I'm going to be paying on this for years." "I'm sorry that happened to you," I said, and meant the plain version of it, not the version with an edge on it. "I mean that." "You didn't do it to me," she said. "I did it to myself. I just—" She stopped. Started again. "I thought if I moved fast enough, none of it would catch up before the divorce cleared. I didn't think about what it would cost you to find out." "I found out anyway," I said. "That's kind of how it goes." She almost smiled at that, the way you smile at something true and unkind at the same time. "Your father's writer," she said. "I didn't even know that thing existed until Whitfield explained it to me in the hallway 3 weeks ago." 12 years old? I said. "Recorded at the Union County Recorder's office the same week we closed on the house. He never told me exactly what was in it, just made sure it was there. Smart man." "He was," I said. "Careful, mostly. Smart came with it." She nodded, and for a second there wasn't anything left to argue about. No motion, no filing, no lawyer standing between us translating what we meant into something a court could read. Just two people who used to build a life together, standing in a hallway with nothing left to build. "Take care of yourself, Marcus," she said. "You too, Renata." She walked toward the exit. I let her go this time without following, without a single word chasing after her. Denise came up beside me a minute later, folder tucked under her arm, lighter than it had been 3 weeks ago, nothing left in it that needed arguing. "That's really it," she said. "Signed, entered, done. You want to grab lunch, or you got a shop to run?" "Got a shop to run," I said. "Guy's got a kitchen full of cabinets waiting on me over on Fenwick Road. Been waiting 2 weeks longer than I promised him." "Go build something then," Denise said. "God knows you've earned a day where the only thing you're measuring is wood." Fenwick Road ran along the north edge of Millbrook, past the old grain elevator, into a stretch of newer houses built where a farm used to be. Gary Holt's place was the third one on the left, a rancher with new siding and a kitchen gutted down to the studs. Gary was the same client whose driveway a process server had walked into 6 weeks back, papers in hand, asking Marcus to sign for a divorce petition in front of him. He hadn't forgotten it. Neither had Marcus. "You're 2 weeks late," Gary said, meeting him at the truck. "No heat in it, just fact." "I know it," Marcus said. "Had some things going on." I read the paper. Gary helped him slide the first cabinet section off the truck bed. 3 lines about a fraud referral. Didn't say your name. Didn't have to. Millbrook's small like that. Millbrook's small exactly like that. Gary held the door while Marcus walked the cabinet through. "You good now?" "I'm accurate," Marcus said. "That's the best I've got some days." Gary laughed, short, and didn't push it. They spent the next 2 hours setting cabinets, leveling doors, running a bead of caulk where the counter met the wall. Marcus worked the way he always worked, careful, unhurried, checking each measurement twice before he cut anything. It felt good to have his hands on wood again instead of paperwork. "These look better than the drawing," Gary said, running a hand over the grain. "Cherry does that. Looks plain until the finish goes on, then it opens up. Man's still got the touch." Gary studied him a second. "For what it's worth. Whatever happened. Looks like it landed right side up." "Working on it," Marcus said. "Some days more than others." He drove back into town past the Union County line, the same stretch of road he'd driven 100 times without thinking about it, and this time he thought about it. 12 years of paper sitting in a recorder's office, waiting on exactly the right Thursday. He still hadn't gotten used to that. A piece of paper his father filed away and forgot about, still doing its job a decade after the man who wrote it was gone. Back at the shop, Dwayne had a stack of new orders on the counter, more than they'd had in months. Word traveled fast in a town this size, and not all of it was about a courthouse. Fenwick Road guy called, Dwayne said. Said to tell you he's sending his brother-in-law over. Wants a whole kitchen. Good. Also, this came for you. Dwayne held out an envelope, county seal in the corner. From the recorder's office. Marcus took it, turned it over once. Didn't open it yet. You want me to give you the room? Dwayne asked. No, stay. Marcus slit the envelope with a thumbnail, unfolded the single page inside. It was short. A notice of recorded release, confirming the title hold on the Corrigan Lane property had been lifted. The fraud referral closed out on the bank's end with no charges pursued against Renata personally. The refinance application formally voided in the county record. Clean deed, his name alone, no encumbrance left standing except the original trust rider, which wasn't going anywhere and didn't need to. That the house thing? Dwayne asked. That's the house thing. Marcus set it on the counter, flat, and looked at it a second longer than he needed to. It's just mine now, all the way, no hold on it. Feels different seeing it in writing? A little. He folded the page back along its crease. Mostly, it just feels finished. Dwayne went back to the invoices. Marcus stood there another minute, then walked out to his truck, drove the 15 minutes out past the edge of town to Fairview Cemetery, where his father was buried under a plain granite marker that said, Walter Doyle, machinist, husband, father, and not much else, because his father had never wanted much else said about him. He didn't bring flowers. His father wouldn't have cared about flowers. Got the notice today, Marcus said, quiet, standing there in the July heat with his hands in his pockets. The house is clear, all the way clear. Your rider held up exactly the way you said it would. He looked at the stone a second. I read your letter about 40 times before I understood what you meant by it. You already have it. Took me a while to get there. A breeze moved through the maples along the fence line. Nothing dramatic, just wind. I'm not going to make a habit of talking to a rock, he said, almost to himself, half a smile in it. But I figured you'd want to know it worked. He drove back into Millbrook with the windows down again, same as the day of the ruling, and this time the drive felt like something closer to ordinary. Not light exactly, just settled. Denise called 2 days later, first thing in the morning before he'd even gotten the shop lights on. Got an update on Renata, she said. You don't have to hear it if you don't want it. Go ahead. She's selling the car, the Lexus. First Ridge's collection department is working out a payment plan on the guarantee, and she's liquidating what she can to keep it from going to a lawsuit. A pause. She's renting now. Small place over on the east side of Delaware, not Millbrook. Fresh start, I guess. Someplace nobody read the 3 lines in the paper. How much is she into First Ridge for total? With the interest that's accrued since default, closer to $192,000 now. She'll be paying on it a long while. Marcus didn't feel anything sharp about that. Just a flat kind of acknowledgement, the way you'd note a number on an invoice that wasn't yours to pay. And Mercer? Gone quiet. Business bankruptcies moving through the system. Word around the Chamber of Commerce crowd is he's already looking at jobs 2 counties over. Nobody locals touching him for work. She let that sit. You want to know the funny part? Sure, that $2,400 a month, the consulting fee she was running through your old joint account? Turns out that's roughly what she's going to owe First Ridge every month for the next several years, once the payment plan's finalized. Almost dollar for dollar. Marcus almost laughed at that. Quiet, not much humor in it, just the shape of something closing evenly. That's either a coincidence or the universe has a sense of timing. I'd bet on the second one, Denise said. You doing all right? Better every week, he said. Shop's busier than it's been in a year. Guy on Fenwick Road already sent me his brother-in-law. Good. That's the kind of thing that should be busy. A pause, softer. You did this right, Marcus. Quiet, accurate, no drama for anybody to point at. That's rare. Most people I represent want to burn the whole house down on their way out, figuratively. You just moved your half somewhere safe and let the truth do the rest. My father used to say, get the measurements right and the rest takes care of itself, Marcus said. Guess it works for more than cabinets. Guess it does. She let out a short breath, something like a laugh. I'll send you the final closing letter for your file. After that, Marcus, this one's done. You won't need me again unless you want to. Appreciate everything, Denise. Go build something, she said, same as before, and hung up. That afternoon, a woman came into the shop he didn't recognize, mid-30s, a photo on her phone of a kitchen island she wanted matched to existing cabinetry. Marcus walked her through the wood samples, cherry, oak, maple, talked grain, and finished the way he always did, patient, exact, no rush in it. Same as any other Tuesday now. The kind of Tuesday that used to be ordinary before an email screenshot on a kitchen table made it stop being ordinary for a while. Dwayne caught him at the end of the day, locking up, flipping the sign in the window from open to closed. You seem lighter, Dwayne said. Been meaning to say it, since the paperwork stuff wrapped up. I feel lighter, Marcus said. Didn't expect that part. Figured I'd just feel tired for a while and that'd be that. 16 years is a lot to carry quiet. Dwayne pulled his jacket off the hook by the door. You carried it quiet the whole way through, too. Never once heard you raise your voice about any of it. Wasn't going to change anything raising my voice, Marcus said. Just makes noise. I'd rather be right than loud. Dwayne nodded like that tracked, like it was the kind of thing he'd expect Marcus to say, and headed out to his truck. Marcus stood in the doorway another minute, looking back at the shop floor. Sawdust settled in the light from the front window. Cabinet doors lined up drying on the rack, waiting on their hardware. He locked the door behind him and drove home to Corrigan Lane, the house sitting there in the evening light exactly the way it always had, exactly the way it was always going to now, nothing hanging over it anymore, nothing left for anyone to file. The first thing Marcus noticed when he stepped inside was the absence, not silence. The house had been quiet plenty of times before. This was different. No half-packed boxes by the stairs, no Renata's coat over the back of a kitchen chair, no stack of event binders on the dining table with colored tabs sticking out like little flags. The place looked almost too clean, like a house waiting for somebody to decide what kind of life belonged in it next. He set his keys in the bowl by the door and stood there a minute. Then he went to the garage. The fireproof box was still on the shelf above the workbench. Same black handle. Same dent near the latch from when his father had dropped it unloading the truck 12 years ago. Marcus opened it, not because he needed anything from it now, but because he wanted to see the papers where they were supposed to be. Walter's letter was on top. I hope you never need this, but if you do, you already have it. Marcus read it once. Then he folded it and put it back. Still got it, he said. The next morning, Renata called while he was loading a vanity cabinet into the truck. He almost let it ring out. Then he wiped his hand on his jeans and answered. Marcus, can we talk? Her voice sounded thin, not broken, just worn down. About what? My things. There are still boxes in the garage, I know. I need them. Make a list, he said. Send it to Denise. A pause. Can we not do it that way? We can do it clean, Marcus said. That's the way left. She breathed into the phone for a second. It's not furniture, she said. It's business stuff. Linens, sample books, some client files. I need them to keep working. Send the list. Marcus. No guessing, he said. No walking through the house. List first. There was no fight in her after that. Fine, she said. I'll send it. He hung up and stood beside the open truck bed, looking at the cabinet he had built for someone else's bathroom. Maple face frame, soft close drawers, nickel pulls wrapped in blue tape so they would not scratch during delivery. Dwayne came out with a moving blanket over one shoulder. That her? Yeah. Trouble? Inventory. Dwayne nodded. Want me here when she comes? Yes. Good. Renata sent the list that afternoon. Denise forwarded it with 3 words at the top. Keep it witnessed. So Marcus did. Friday morning, Renata arrived at Corrigan Lane in a rented cargo van, not the Lexus. Dwayne stood by the garage door with a clipboard. Denise was there too, leaning against her car, sunglasses on, coffee in hand. She didn't look like she expected trouble. That was part of her gift. She always looked like trouble had already been priced in. Renata stepped out of the van and looked at the house. She stayed on the driveway. Morning, Marcus said. Morning. Denise held up the list. We'll check off only what's named. Renata gave a small nod. That's fine. It took 40 minutes. Table linens in 3 plastic tubs, 2 racks of silk samples, a box of chargers wrapped in newspaper, 4 binders labeled weddings, corporate, nonprofit, holiday, 1 rolling case of fabric swatches, a folding sign frame from some bridal show in Columbus. Dwayne carried the heavier pieces without comment. Marcus stayed by the garage, opened boxes, checked labels, and read each line before anything went in the van. When they got to the last tub, Renata stopped. That one's not on the list, Marcus said. It's mine. It's not on the list. It's just candles. Denise looked over the rim of her cup, then sent a revised list. Renata's face tightened, but she did not raise her voice. They're worth maybe $80. Then they're worth waiting for, Marcus said. That landed harder than he meant it to. He saw it hit her. $80 had become a number worth arguing over. A year ago, she would have spent more than that on flowers for a client tasting and called it overhead. She stepped back from the tub. Fine. Dwayne shut the van doors. Renata took the clipboard and signed beside every checked line. Denise took a photo of the page with her phone. Marcus watched the whole thing without saying more than he had to. Then Renata turned to him. I need to ask you something. Denise moved before Marcus answered. Not much. Just 1 step closer. Ask through me, Denise said. Renata looked embarrassed, then angry, then tired again. It's about First Ridge. Marcus waited. They sent me a debt allocation worksheet. My collection attorney says if any part of the Mercer guarantee supported household expenses, it can be considered during the final property accounting. Denise lowered her coffee. There is no final property accounting. Judgment is entered. I know that. Then why are you here? Renata opened the side pocket of her purse and pulled out 2 folded pages. Marcus knew before she unfolded them that he was not going to like what was on them. This just states that some of the money from Mercer Mechanical went into the joint account while we were married, she said. That's all. Denise held out her hand. Give it to me. Renata gave it over. Denise read the first page. Her mouth went flat. No, she said. Renata looked at Marcus. It's not asking you to take the debt. Yes, it is, Denise said. It's asking him to acknowledge deposits. It's asking him to acknowledge the guarantee benefited the marital household, Denise said. That's different. You know it's different. Renata didn't answer. Marcus took the papers from Denise and read them himself. There it was, dressed up in soft language, acknowledgement of marital benefit, consulting deposits, shared household operations, good faith reliance. No direct admission of liability, except every sentence pointed in that direction if a collection lawyer wanted it to. The amount at the bottom was $192,416.18. Marcus looked at that number longer than he needed to. Then he folded the pages and handed them back. No. Renata's jaw moved once. You don't even have to pay anything, she said. Then you don't need my signature. You know how this looks. I know how it reads. Marcus, I'm trying to survive this. So am I. That stopped her. For a second, the only sound was a mower running somewhere down Corrigan Lane. Renata looked at Denise. Can he at least write a neutral letter? No, Denise said. A statement? No. Something that says he knew Mercer paid me? Marcus felt the old heat start in his chest. The one that had wanted to speak in the kitchen when he found that email. The one that had wanted to ask how many nights she had sat across from him and already known what she was doing. He did not use it. I knew after I traced it, he said. Not before. Renata looked away. Denise handed the papers back to her. Don't bring liability documents to his house again, Denise said. Send them to counsel. I can't afford counsel for every conversation. You couldn't afford the guarantee either, Denise said. Renata flinched. Marcus almost told Denise to let it go. He didn't. It was true, and Denise had earned the right to say true things plainly. Renata folded the papers with shaking hands and put them in her purse. I'll send the revised list for the candles, she said. Do that, Marcus said. She got in the van and backed out slowly. She did not look at the house again. Dwayne watched her turn onto the road. She tried again, he said. Yeah. Through a different door, same house. Denise gave him a look. Call me if another door appears. It will. Probably. She pointed at him with her coffee cup. No signatures. No letters. No kind little statements that become expensive later. I know. I mean it. I know, Denise. Her face softened a little. I know you know, she said. I still like saying it. That afternoon, Marcus went back to the shop and finished the vanity install for a client on Poplar Street. He worked until his shoulders ached. At 6, he sat at his desk with the old joint account printouts spread in front of him one last time. Not because he needed to prove anything, because accuracy had a way of calming him down. $2,400 on March 1st, $2,400 on April 1st, $2,400 on May 1st. Same memo line. Consulting, same routing source, Mercer Mechanical Services. Same false shape, over and over, like if the lie repeated itself neatly enough, it might become bookkeeping. He opened a blank spreadsheet and made one final column. Purpose claimed. Purpose proved. He entered each one. Then he printed it and put it in the file Denise had told him to keep for 7 years. Dwayne came through the office doorway with 2 paper plates from the diner. You eating? Wasn't planning to. That's why I brought food. He set 1 plate on the desk. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans. Millbrook Diner used too much pepper and not enough salt, but it was hot. Marcus leaned back in the chair. You keeping me alive now? Somebody's got to. You run on coffee and court orders. Marcus opened the plastic fork packet. Court orders are done. Paperwork isn't. Paperwork's never done. Dwayne sat across from him and nodded at the folder. That all hers? Mine, Marcus said. It's what keeps hers from becoming mine. Dwayne understood that. He had worked with Marcus long enough to know a clean file was not obsession. It was shelter. They ate in the office with the door open to the shop. The building smelled like sawdust, varnish, and diner gravy. Not a bad mix. Not good either. Just real. Halfway through, Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it go. It buzzed again. Dwayne looked at it. Collections? Maybe. Want me to answer and pretend to be your angry receptionist? No. Marcus picked up. This is Marcus. Mr. Doyle, this is Laura Hensley with First Ridge Bank's Recovery Department. Marcus set the fork down. Go ahead. I'm calling because Mrs. Doyle listed you as a related party on a debt review form. No, Marcus said. The woman paused. Sir? No. I'm not a related party to her guarantee. I understand your position. It's not a position, it's the judgment. I do have that notation here. Then use it. Another pause. Dwayne stopped eating. The woman's voice stayed professional. Mr. Doyle, we are required to verify any claimed household benefit. Send it to Denise Ferraro. We have Ms. Ferraro's contact information. Good. Would you be willing to answer one question on a recorded line? No. Sir, it may help close the review. No. This time the pause was longer. All right, she said. We'll direct further contact to counsel. Do that. He hung up and picked up his fork. Dwayne stared at him. That's it? That's it. You didn't even ask the question. Didn't need to. Dwayne shook his head. Man, you are allergic to traps. No, I read labels. The next morning, Priya Anand called from First Ridge. Marcus was in the finishing room, brushing a satin coat over cherry drawer fronts. He put the brush in the tray and stepped outside before answering. Marcus Doyle. Mr. Doyle, it's Priya Anand. Morning. I wanted you to know Recovery contacted you yesterday against the preference listed in our internal notes. That should not have happened. It happened. I know. I've corrected it. Appreciate that. She was quiet for a beat. Also, Mrs. Doyle submitted an allocation form. She attached the recurring deposits from Mercer Mechanical. I figured. The form is under review, but your divorce judgment and the fraud file are already linked. So is the title hold history. I can't give you legal advice. But from the bank side, the claim is weak. Marcus looked through the open shop door at Dwayne moving clamps off a work table. That's good to know. There is one more thing, Priya said. He waited. The bank has scheduled a creditor review meeting next week. Mrs. Doyle, Mr. Mercer, and counsel for recovery will be present. Ms. Ferraro has been copied because your name appeared on the form. Do I need to be there? Legally, that's for your attorney. Practically, if your attorney attends, your records may close the related party issue faster. There it was. Another room, another table, more paper. Marcus rubbed his forehead with the heel of his hand. What time? Tuesday at 9. At First Ridge? Yes. Delaware branch. I'll talk to Denise. That would be wise. He almost laughed, not because it was funny, because wise had become the expensive version of tired. Priya? Yes? Is Mercer coming himself? He has indicated he will. Marcus looked at the drawer fronts drying under the shop lights. Good, he said. Tuesday morning came with rain, hard enough to make Route 37 shine all the way into Delaware. Denise drove her own car. Marcus followed in the truck with a file box belted into the passenger seat, like it was a child. First Ridge's Delaware branch looked the same as it had the day everything first broke open. Same glass doors, same teller line, same coffee station by the lobby. Different feeling. Priya met them near the back offices. Mr. Doyle. Ms. Ferraro. Priya, Denise said. Who's in the room? Recovery Counsel. Mrs. Doyle. Mr. Mercer. Mr. Mercer's bankruptcy attorney by phone. Good, Denise said. Let's keep it narrow. Priya looked at Marcus. You don't have to speak unless asked. I know. They went into a conference room with a long table and a speakerphone in the middle. Renata sat on one side, hands folded around a paper cup of water. Todd Mercer sat beside her in a navy jacket that didn't fit his shoulders. He looked smaller than Marcus remembered from the few holiday events where he had seen him laughing too loudly with Renata near the bar. Mercer didn't look at Marcus. That told Marcus plenty. A bank attorney introduced herself as Elaine Porter. She had a thin folder, a laptop, and the calm voice of someone paid to keep bad facts from wandering. This review concerns Mrs. Doyle's personal guarantee for Mercer Mechanical Services, Elaine said. The outstanding balance is $192,416.18. Mrs. Doyle has submitted a claim that certain funds related to the guaranteed business entered a marital account and may constitute household benefit. Denise opened Marcus's file box. We dispute that. Elaine nodded. Understood. Renata stared at the table. Mercer cleared his throat. The consulting payments were legitimate. Marcus looked at him then. Mercer still would not meet his eyes. Denise pulled out the spreadsheet Marcus had printed. Legitimate to whom? Mercer's attorney crackled through the speakerphone. My client isn't here to litigate the divorce. No, Denise said. He's here because his company paid my client's wife $2,400 a month while his company was failing, while she held a personal guarantee, and while a refinance application named him as a proposed co-borrower on my client's house. Elaine Porter looked up from her laptop. Marcus saw it. So did Priya. Renata closed her eyes. Mercer finally looked at Marcus. It wasn't like that, Mercer said. Marcus said nothing. Denise did not need him to. Priya opened her own folder. For the record, First Ridge's fraud review file already determined that Mr. Doyle's signature on the refinance application did not match the bank's specimen signature. The application was voided. The proposed co-borrower line listed Todd Mercer. Elaine typed something. Mercer leaned forward. I never signed that final packet. No one said you did, Priya said, but I didn't forge anything. Priya's face did not move. No one used that word in this meeting. The room went quiet. Renata looked at Mercer then. It was quick, but Marcus caught it. Not fear, not love. Something worse for both of them. Recognition. Elaine turned to Renata. Mrs. Doyle, did the consulting payments correspond to invoices? Renata swallowed. They were monthly. That isn't what I asked. Mercer shifted in his chair. We had a verbal agreement. Elaine looked at him. I asked Mrs. Doyle. Renata's hands tightened around the cup. No formal invoices, she said. Denise slid Marcus's spreadsheet across the table. My client reconciled the joint account. Every one of those payments was spent within 48 hours on business expenses tied to Mrs. Doyle's event company. Print materials, venue deposits, vendor retainers, and one payroll transfer. None of it paid the mortgage. None of it paid utilities. None of it went to groceries, insurance, taxes, or household repairs. Elaine read the first page. Do you have bank records attached? Behind it, Denise said. Marcus watched Renata while Elaine flipped pages. Renata had tried to turn the deposits into a bridge. Denise had turned them into a fence. That was the difference. Mercer's attorney came through the speaker again. We object to any characterization that implies improper movement of funds. This is not a court, Elaine said. No, Denise said. It's a bank review. So review the numbers. Priya's eyes moved once toward Marcus. Not sympathy. Professional acknowledgement. The records were doing what records did. Elaine looked at Renata. Mrs. Doyle, based on what I'm seeing, the household benefit claim is not supported. Renata's mouth opened, then closed. Mercer leaned back hard. So that's it? Elaine turned to him. For Mr. Doyle's involvement, yes. But the debt still sits with her? The guarantee remains with the signer, Elaine said. Renata looked down. Marcus did not feel satisfied. He had thought maybe seeing Mercer pinned in a bank conference room would give him something. It didn't. Mercer looked like a man who had been spending other people's walls for kindling and finally found concrete. Elaine made a note on the file. Mr. Doyle will be removed from related party contact, she said. Any further review goes through counsel only. Denise nodded. Thank you. Priya closed her folder. That resolves our part. Marcus stood. Renata spoke before he reached the door. Marcus. He stopped, but he did not turn fully around. She looked at the paper cup in her hands. I thought it would make the payment smaller, she said. Denise started to answer. Marcus lifted one hand slightly. and she stopped. For you, he said. Renata nodded once. Tiny. Almost nothing. Yes. He could have said a lot then. He could have said the house was never a cash drawer. He could have said 16 years should have bought him one honest sentence before the filings started. He could have said Todd Mercer was sitting right there and still letting her carry the number. He didn't. You keep trying to make your shortage mine, Marcus said. Don't. She looked up at him, and for once there was no argument ready. I won't, she said. Mercer gave a small laugh under his breath. That was the wrong sound. Denise turned on him. Mr. Mercer, she said, you should be the quietest person in this building. Elaine Porter's pen stopped. Priya looked down at her folder. Mercer opened his mouth, thought better of it, and shut it. Marcus left before anyone could add anything else. Out in the lobby, the rain had slowed to a steady tapping against the windows. Denise walked beside him to the doors. You handled that right. I didn't handle much. You didn't sign. You didn't talk too much. That's handling it. He looked back once through the glass wall of the conference room. Renata was still seated. Mercer was standing now, phone to his ear, his back to everybody. Even from that far away, Marcus could see Renata wasn't looking at him anymore. She believed him, Marcus said. For a while. Long enough. Denise pushed the door open. Long enough costs money. They stood under the overhang while rain dripped from the edge of the roof. What happens now? Marcus asked. For you? Nothing. That's the point. And for them? Mercer's bankruptcy keeps moving. First Ridge collects from Renata unless she negotiates something better. Recovery won't reach your house, your shop, or your accounts. Marcus nodded. Clean? Clean, Denise said. He almost smiled at the word. Not happy. Just done with one more door. Back in Millbrook, he drove straight to the shop. Dwayne was at the front counter with a young man Marcus recognized from the hardware store, maybe 22, nervous hands, work boots too clean to have earned their first real month yet. Dwayne looked relieved when Marcus walked in. Good timing, he said. This is Caleb. He wants to ask you something. Caleb stood too fast. Mr. Doyle. Marcus is fine. Right. Marcus. He held a folded piece of paper in both hands. I heard you might need help around here. Marcus looked at Dwayne. Dwayne shrugged. I didn't say we did. I said you decide that. Marcus took the paper. It was a resume, 1 page, printed at the library by the look of it. Hardware store stock clerk. Community college carpentry certificate, unfinished. 2 summers framing decks for an uncle in Marysville. You ever built cabinets? Marcus asked. No, sir. Ever measured wrong and paid for it? Caleb blinked. Yes, sir. Good. Means you remember. Dwayne smiled at the floor. Marcus read the page again. The shop was busier. The Fenwick Road referral alone would tie them up for weeks. He had been telling himself he could stretch. Stretching was how things cracked. What are you looking for? Marcus asked. Anything steady? Caleb said. I can sweep, load trucks, learn. I don't need fancy. What do you need? Caleb hesitated. Enough to help my mom with rent. There it was, a number Marcus hadn't asked for, sitting behind the words. How much? She's short $600 this month. Marcus folded the resume once and tapped it against his palm. Can you start Monday? Caleb's face changed before he could stop it. Yes, sir. 8 o'clock. Boots that can get dirty. Bring lunch. First 2 weeks are trial. $16 an hour. If you show up and listen, we talk again after that. Caleb nodded too many times. I will. And Caleb, yes? Don't call me sir all day. It'll wear me out. The kid laughed, nervous but real. Okay, Marcus. After he left, Dwayne leaned on the counter. We hiring now? Looks like it. You going soft? No. You sure? Marcus set Caleb's resume on the desk beside the order book. Shop needs hands, he said. Kid needs hours. That's not soft. That's math. Dwayne grinned. There he is. Marcus walked into the shop and ran one hand over the cabinet doors drying on the rack. Monday would mean teaching someone how to sand without rounding an edge, how to read a tape without guessing, how to sweep before dust became finish trouble. Small things. Necessary things. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Renata. No documents, just words. I told First Ridge I won't list you again. Marcus read it once. Then another text came. I should have done that first. He stood with the phone in his hand, hearing the rain start again against the shop windows. Dwayne called from the front. Everything all right? Marcus typed one sentence. Keep it that way. He sent it, set the phone face down on the workbench, and picked up a sanding block. There was a cabinet edge under his hand, still a little too sharp for a house where people would reach for it every morning without thinking. He took the edge down slowly, checked it with his thumb, then worked it again until it was smooth enough to pass.